All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Futures. We are live. It is Sunday, May 17th. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Got a lot to talk about, a lot to get into. A lot to get into this week is going to be Nvidia earnings week. And that matters because Nvidia is still a significant part of this economy. So, I mean, it really controls the entire stock market. So we'll have a lot to talk about right there. Bitcoin just fell below 77, trying to get a little bit of retracement. Bitcoin just now fell like $1,500, and so did so the S&P fell like 0.5%. It's starting to get bought up a little bit, but right before the overnight markets open in the next 14 minutes, you are seeing a little bit of this price action that's a bit uglier versus not. Bitcoin down, S&P futures down. We're going to see how this market opens last Friday. I know I missed the market close on Friday. Just got caught up in a couple different things that I thought I wouldn't get caught up in, and I made a community post about that. But we did dump after hours and during the day on Friday. So a bunch of different, I guess you could say, catalysts took place on Friday that we'll talk about. We got a lot of 13Fs that I want to review because some of these disclosures we got from some of the big guys, Druckenmiller, Bill Gates, Bill Ackman, Buffett. I think weird is not even the word. It's confusing, to say the least. And maybe it's not so confusing. We'll explore the bull and the bear cases of kind of some of these disclosures that we got out. But we'll talk about that. And then obviously we have Nvidia this week, which is going to be important. Trump's also been talking a lot over the past 24 hours around none other than Iran. Oil futures, why not? 107. It's been a while since we were back above 105. Looks like we're back. Trump has not really been saying stuff that's positive, I would say, when it comes to Iran in terms of just like de-escalation. In fact, he even tweeted a picture of, I don't know, people can run wild with their imagination. The caption was Space Force, but the initial reaction does not really look like Space Force. So you got Trump saying a bunch of different things about Iran and how they're going to be in trouble if they don't act soon. So we'll talk more about what that has to do with the macro and oil, but obviously, things are a little ugly. Nonetheless, we've had a lot of green over the past month, at least if you're in the semis. I think Friday had a little bit of green for these software names, but still, those ended up taking a bit of a dump. So, I mean, maybe we're seeing some of the rotation, but if we're not seeing some of the rotation and we're more so seeing a more broad-based sell-off, then we're going to have to analyze and kind of talk about why that is happening. All right, let's get into it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Ray, Gene, Kane, cool as a cucumber. What's up? What's up? What's up? Thank you all for being here. Robert, Chels. By the way, Chels put out her vlog for the meetup. So for those that want to watch what a meetup looks like, this was for Chicago. I will link it right here. Shout out to Chels for putting in some work here and capturing the moments. It was super fun. So there's the link right there in the chat, and you guys can click it and take a look at that. Nate pops in the chat, and the only thing he can say is Nebius. It's quite incredible. It's quite incredible. I was stalking your tweets over the weekend, Nate. I think you had like 10 tweets about Nebius. I'm not even lying. I think you legit. I was like, it's Saturday, bro. It's like, we get it. Nebius is cool, but it's Saturday. Enjoy the weekend. What did you guys do over the weekend, by the way? I got some work done. I took my mom out to dinner on Friday. And she actually had steak for the first time. She usually didn't eat steak, so we went to a steakhouse, and she enjoyed it. She didn't really, I don't think she's going to become a steak person, but got her some steak. And Saturday, I actually had a lot of different things. Today, I really did nothing. Today, I kind of relaxed, but Saturday, had a lot more stuff on the plate. So overall productive weekend, and now we're back. Nate says it's the only thing to talk about. That's fair. That is fair. Adam, what's up? JT, what's up? George, what's up? Bluebird, what's up? After the overnight futures, we're going to get into all the 13Fs because we got a lot of stuff to talk about there, and I definitely want to dig deep into it. But some of these macro concerns might get us a little bit of a red futures, or red overnight markets, which it is what it is given how green we were. Zocolt says church, took kids to extracurriculars, hung out with cousins, stock research. Fun weekend. Basis points was awesome. Basis points was fun for us to do. I think a lot of you guys enjoyed the intro. We weren't trying to make the intro. I was legit annoyed at Steve because every time I tell him to fix his positioning, he just doesn't understand why. And I'm like, dude, like, how do you not get it? So this was the intro for those that missed it. But thank you again for everyone showing the love on Basis Points. We're going to have two very special CEOs on Basis Points this week. Hopefully the first one will be out on Friday, and then the next one will be out on Monday. But I think you guys will enjoy the two CEOs we have coming on. This was the intro of this week's episode. Steve, move your...
Do what I want.
Dude, move your fucking iPad out of the... That's how you know I was mad, bro. I was just like... Because this was like the 5th time I was asking him. Like, dude, move it out of the screen. It's annoying. Frame. I'm not going to tell you twice. Okay, put the mic near you. We're trying to act like professional podcasters. Okay? You know, it's still in the frame. Got to move it.
To where?
Move it to that side. Move your freaking coffee out of the way too, bro. Like, so you guys get my point, right? Like, it's in my frame. Like, it's annoying to look at.
To where?
Move it to that side. Move your freaking coffee out of the way too, bro. Like, so I know you're unemployed, but try to take it a little seriously.
You get to have a laptop in front of you.
No, but it's not showing up on your angle. I'm not saying Steve can't have his iPad. I'm just saying move it out of the frame. And it still didn't get moved out of the frame. That's the thing.
What are you talking about?
You don't? Do you see my? You see it? You're messing up my hood and Pouncer sticker. No one can even see it. There you go. Even though you're still in the shop, but at this point, if I tell you something else to do, you might
hold on.
So. And get your stupid Starbucks out of the way.
No,
no one wants to see your Starbucks cup. Your
you know
blurry
what?
Cup.
Starbucks is delicious.
Starbucks is not delicious.
It is much better than Dunkin'.
All right. So that was the intro for last week's pod. I see a lot of people enjoyed it, but it was like legit. I'm like, dude, move the freaking, and then the coffee and his iPad stayed in the shot for the entire hour and a half. So it didn't even get anything done. But got a lot to talk about. A lot to talk about. Again, Bitcoin right there, 77,453. There were so many disclosures on Friday. Again, I wasn't live, but I took a look at all of them over the weekend, and very confusing to say the least on some of these. So we will talk about that. Again, got some macro headlines that are not the best for oil. And then we got Nvidia coming up. All right, couple things I want to show before we dive deep into all the different stats and macro stuff. Let's start off with a couple clips of Jensen, given it is Nvidia week. You could tell he's getting a bit pissed about how the market is interpreting, not the market, but how some people are framing the narrative around his business. This was Jensen at a Stanford talk over the weekend. 527 million liquidated from the crypto market in the past 60 minutes. The Bitcoin dip's not fully getting bought up, but it went down really quickly. Yeah, we were at 78.3. We're now at 77.4. We fell below 77. So that is a little weird. We'll see how that impacts when the overnight market's open.
Well, so you know what we make for a living? We make GPUs, and GPUs are used for video games. They're used for delivering soy sauce. They're used for medical imaging. If you I had a CT scan done yesterday, I'm fine. But that behind it was Nvidia. Nvidia is in every single medical imaging system in the world, and so the question is, what is it that you build? What I'm fundamentally against, and it makes no sense. It makes no sense to this moment, is to compare Nvidia GPUs to atomic bombs. There are 1 billion people with Nvidia GPUs. I advocate Nvidia GPUs to all of you.
He's obviously talking about Dwarkesh on that pod a couple weeks ago, where he said, "Why is a GPU not like a nuclear weapon?"
I advocate Nvidia GPUs to my family, to my kids, to people I love, but I don't advocate atomic bombs to anybody. So that analogy is stupid. And so if you start from there, you can't finish a thought. If you start from believing that, you can't finish the rest of the thoughts. The second idea that I consider completely ridiculous. Why should American companies go compete in foreign countries? You're going to lose it anyways. You're going to lose it anyways. So why go? Well, if you guys all apply that same philosophy, why wake up in the morning? And so I don't prescribe to we are going to lose anyways. I don't prescribe to that. If you want me to lose, you're going to have to deal it to me. But, you know, I'm going to have to put up a fight.
That goes back to Jensen's signature quote over the past couple of weeks, which is, you're not talking to a loser. So, yeah, Jensen obviously not really happy with kind of the framing of Nvidia being seen as an atomic bomb. However, and we'll cover this story right before we get into the price action. this China-Taiwan thing is heating up, and it's getting a little bit more serious. And I think that's why Jensen is pushing back of Nvidia, being seen as an atomic bomb, because at the end of the day, their products are powerful, but I think he's also trying to reconcile what's happening in the context of geopolitics. So this is from Axios. Trump advisors fear China may target Taiwan in the next 5 years. Quote, there's no way we can be ready economically. The chip supply chain won't be anywhere close to self-sufficiency. For CEOs and really the economy as a whole, there's no more pressing issue than the supply chain for chips. A Trump advisor told Axios, Xi is trying to move China to a new position where he's saying, we're not a rising power, we're your equal, and Taiwan is mine. This trip signaled a much higher likelihood that Taiwan will be on the table in the next 5 years. This is not something new from Axios. When the administration came back, I think Rubio talked about this as well, that, hey, one of the biggest issues that came up was not about Iran. In fact, nothing happened with Iran. I mean, honestly, guys, the meeting felt like a failure. I'm just going to call a spade a spade. Like, outside of them buying more beef and Boeing jets, if the goal was to get the Chinese to help us open the Strait of Hormuz, or at least talk to their allies, the Iranians, which are our adversaries, to cut the shit and move on, that didn't happen. What we got is a bunch of photo ops between Trump and Xi, and then basically the CCP saying, hey, so about Taiwan, and the administration doesn't really know how to respond. Shamat's take is that this is going to become a much bigger deal 18 months from now.
From Taiwan not being an important moment of conversation the way it is today. Why 18 months? Because we are at a point where we're probably 1 to 2 nanometers away from being able to do what we need Taiwan to strategically do for us. And so as we scale up our chip fabs, as we get more capacity, and interestingly, there are these orthogonal technologies being developed. I don't know if you guys saw, but Neuralink was showcasing now a machine that is literally operating at the almost nanometer scale to do the brain operations for the implantation all automatically. When you have the dexterity and the capability mechanically to make these things, the real reason then is a very different one than what it is today. Today, it's economic. And if you take that off the table, I think we'll have a very different attitude to Taiwan. We're 18 months.
Now, look, I don't know if we're 18 months away. I don't know if we have the right technology to be able to combat and replicate what's happening with TSMC. If anything, it kind of gives the reason for why Intel should be more valuable than it is today, right? If that's our only chip fab at a global level or at a domestic level, that can actually help us. But the Taiwan situation, who knows? The next coming years might be bigger than what people think. Now, the Taiwanese government, they came out, I believe the prime minister, and they specifically responded to what happened with China. And in terms of the talks of the weekend, they said, we're concerned about the issue raised during the Trump-Xi meeting. Thanks to U.S. for continued support. Taiwan will not provoke or escalate conflict, but will not surrender sovereignty, democracy, or a free way of life under pressure. Taiwan is a sovereign, independent, democratic country, and China is a source of regional instability. U.S. arms sales and security cooperation key to regional stability, as China has not renounced use of force. So the Chinese are saying, hey, we want to reunify. The Taiwanese are saying, hey, we don't want to. And the United States is trying to figure out exactly, what they're going to do in case things get worse. So that will be a developing story that we have to continue to be updated on. Overnight markets, they are open. Let's see what we've got. Intel down 1.43. Nvidia down 0.23. 224 on Nvidia. Robinhood down 1.34%. Micron falling below 720. It closed 724 on Friday. Actually closed 715. So we're going to see if this one continues to get hit. Obviously, all the semis are getting hit, so it's not isolated to any individual one. HIMS right there, that's down 1.3%. Bitmine, that's down. Cerebras is down a little bit. UNH is down 5. Really? Oh my goodness, UNH is down 5. What's the headline on UNH? That's way more aggressive than any of the other stocks right there. There's got to be something on UNH. Let's see. I'll try to find what's going on. Intel down 1.7. Marvell down 0.5%. Snowflake is up. Hold on, is Salesforce up? Salesforce is up. Give me Adobe, baby. Adobe's down. What about Palantir? Palantir's down. Okay, I was like, if all the software names are running, maybe we're getting a rotation. And it seems like it's just a couple names, which is not the case. Shopify, that's also down. Yeah, Buffett sold. That's a fair point. But you would think UNH would drop after hours. Hold on. UNH is not actually down 5%. UNH is at 374. It closed at 375. It's down a little bit more from the after hours. Yeah. UNH is not legit down 5%. because it closed at 375. So it's at 374. So it looks like it's down 5%, but it's down like 0.5%, not even 0.5%, 0.2% from the Friday close where it was down 5%. Okay, so yeah, that's it makes sense for it to be down at that level. Intel, what do we have? So we'll talk about the 13Fs because obviously that's going to impact a lot of these stocks. Intel's down 2.3. It closed at 395. No, but the after hours, I don't think it closed at 395, guys. The after hours showed me 375. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Regardless, even if it's down 5% right now, it's because Berkshire sold. I mean, that's the simplest reason. I don't think there was a change for the CMS rates for Medicare companies. So Berkshire is your reason there, but we'll talk more about Berkshire Hathaway. HIMS, that's down 1.16%. Micron, are we dumping? Okay, Micron's dumping. 701. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. That's going down. Nvidia, not down as bad as Micron. Nvidia 223. Broadcom's probably falling with Nvidia. That is correct. Broadcom's falling down. Again, when the chips fall, everything falls. Nothing is going to be safe, which is why position sizing becomes very important. By the way, for everyone who is complaining that put went to 23, well, it's at 15 now. So this is your opportunity if you are interested in it. There was a short report over the weekend, and there were some pretty ugly things that were disclosed, especially about the $50 million deal they got. They don't even get all 50 million, folks. It's like conditional revenue. Like there's some shady shit going on with Poet, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. There was one team that went to Toronto to investigate the headquarters, and they went up to the floor where Poet's supposed to be located, and the person was like, there's no company called Poet around here. So, I mean, I don't know. It's a little weird, but we'll try to see if there's any more details on that and exactly what's happening with that company. CoreWeave, that's down 1.53. IREN, that's down 2.45. Bitcoin should be down. Bitcoin is, 77,287, down from 78. Is Zeta down? Zeta, it's only down 1%. The software names seem to be getting spared a little bit in relationship to the semis. The fact that Salesforce is up, pretty incredible. Adobe's also up. Where's ServiceNow? That was up like 4% on Friday, right? Snowflake is up a little bit. ServiceNow's green. IGV should be green. If those are green, IGV's still red. That's probably because Microsoft's down, and Palantir. Microsoft and Palantir not really helping IGV, but some of your other software names are doing okay, which means maybe little rotation is what you're seeing. ASTS, that's down 2%. Nebius, that's down 2%. SanDisk down 3%. Cerebras down 0.5%. Is Micron losing 700? Micron, nope, right back up to 708. Wow, that was a quick buyback. It was getting ready to go right below 700. Rocket Lab, is that down? Rocket Lab is down 2%, 122. Zeta is still red, down 1%. So again, some of the software names are getting hit. TSM, that's down 1%. Corning, that's down 1.8%. GameStop down 0.5%. Snapchat down a little bit. Atlassian down 0.5%. CoreWeave down 2%. Ford down 0.3%. BMNR doesn't show after hours on Webull, I imagine on Robinhood. Yeah, down 5% on Robinhood. It makes sense. ETH and Bitcoin getting hit. So all your crypto plays are going to get hit. Coinbase also getting hit. Quantum's hit hard. Coinbase below 190. D-Wave is down 1.2. Rigetti is down 1.6. IONQ down 5. Oh my. All right. So the sell-off on Friday continued into the after hours, and it's continuing into the overnight markets. Oil, for those that don't know, just hit 107. You got Trump basically not really speaking lightly about Iran. I think the market is getting scared about inflation coming back because oil is not even stable at 100, right? The fact that it's rising up with a 10-year that was already spiking is not a good thing. Or is our 10-year at 4.6? Oh my goodness, our 10-year's at 4 points. This is the, I was rounding up. It was at like 4.578, 4.59. There it is. 4.6 on the dot. It's just not good. Like, it's just not. And our 30-year is really not good. It was at 5.07 last week. Now it's legit at 5.12. At some point, the credit markets will matter to the stock market, I think. Like, I'm not an expert on bonds, but the basic math behind them says that it's hard for the stock market to do amazing when the credit markets are screaming. So, and this is, when the credit markets are screaming, this is kind of when the market starts to look at names that are beat up and valuable and not expensive and not on parabolic runs, like a ServiceNow, which is up 2.21%. like an Adobe, which is at least green, or a Salesforce, which is at least green, Snowflake, which is at least green. Oracle's probably down because of semi stuff. Yeah, Oracle's down 1.3. Microsoft is down for a different reason, down 1%. We'll talk about it. But that's down. Yeah, Walmart, Coca-Cola. Now, I don't know if we're getting a full rotation into value names, but if we were to see somewhat of a rotation into the beat-up sectors and out of the semis, would it surprise anyone? I don't think so. Granted, if you believe in the semiconductor data center build-out cycle, that would be your dip. Hopefully, we get like an actual real dip, like a serious, serious sell-off so that people can legitimately buy the dip. I mean, could you imagine if we get Nvidia at 180 again? I'm not saying I want it. Don't get me wrong. But if it were to happen, I don't know. I wouldn't complain that much. I'd be like, okay. Like, I'm not buying it at 220, but if they want to give it to us back at 180, let Trump figure out the war situation, get bond yields come down, and I can take some delayed gratification. I'd be okay with that. But I don't know if it's that easily going to happen. AMD is probably at 420, AMD 411. Okay, now remember, AMD, Micron, SanDisk, these names have ran way more than your Nvidias or your Broadcoms of the world. So the fact that they're getting hit harder is natural because they ran harder. So, what goes up must come down, or at least you have to be ready for what goes up parabolically coming down parabolically. But also I wonder when buyers step in and say enough is enough. We don't need AMD to go back to the 370s, 380s, but time is going to tell to see how bad some of this actually gets and if it can reverse quicker than that. Amazon 261, Meta, are we below 500? Meta 610, Google probably 395, Google 393. AMD again was at 467. Robinhood should be down like 3%, right? Robinhood down 2%, 75.55. All right, so everything's down. I mean, outside of some of your value plays like a Walmart or your defensive plays and some of the software names that are going green, which is actually really nice to see that a service now is up when the rest of the market's down. It means the market's having like some level of safety, putting their money into stuff that's been destroyed. VG's up a little bit. All the semis are down. Qualcomm down 2, Broadcom down 1.2, Intel down 3. That one's getting hit. AppLovin, is that green? AppLovin is down 1.6. For those wondering why we are down, Trump has basically, let's just say, posted more things that are implying escalation with Iran. So just to cover those tweets real quick, this was the first of a couple he tweeted. For Iran, the clock is ticking and they better get moving fast or there won't be anything left of them. Time is of the essence. A little aggressive. There won't be anything left of them. And then he posted this, which is, I mean, it's an American flag on top of the Middle East. I think he was basically saying America is going to take control of Iran, essentially, if you don't capitulate. It's not really the stuff you want to see when it comes to like de-escalating in a ceasefire. So again, the China stuff didn't get us any closer to that. So little ugly, little ugly. UNH still down 5%. Okay, I think that's most of the price action. We can get into some of the headlines that we have. Oscar's down a little bit. Reddit's down 2%. Redwire's down. Bloom's down 4%. By the way, that Leopold guy, who's like the famous dude from the OpenAI, who got fired from OpenAI, that started his hedge fund, $250 million, turned into $5.5 billion. Everyone's been obsessing about his 13F. He had Intel, CoreWeave, Bloom Energy. The guy, to give him a lot of credit, he really called a lot of these names very early. He didn't disclose his 13F. So there's two scenarios. Either A, he sold everything and has less than $100 million AUM, which means he's not required by the SEC to disclose his holdings. And he just dumped it into treasuries and boom, he's just chilling. S&P, by the way, 734. We were at 749 on Friday. Or he got late with the filing and maybe he has to pay a fine because he was late with the filing, because no one's allowed to be late with the filing and he's accepted the fine. Or the third option is he requested confidential secret treatment from the SEC, which they do make certain submissions for, like Warren Buffett, when he's accumulating stock, he tends to try to get the SEC to give him the submissions to not have to disclose 13Fs on a 45-day basis. This guy's not Warren Buffett, so I don't know why the SEC would give him that much leverage, but we'll probably find out Monday exactly what's happening with his 13F. SoFi, are we down on SoFi? 1536. That's down 1.6% as well. 1.6% as well. Wow, ServiceNow, baby. 4%, 99. This is, in my opinion, very healthy to see the market in a time of distress, which is affecting high beta growth, go to something that is a solid company. They put up good revenue growth. I don't think they deserve to be dead because they're not showing in the numbers that they're dead. Jensen has endorsed them going into that company. There wasn't a headline on ServiceNow over the weekend, so I don't think there's anything like that triggered it other than a potential move to safety. Now, again, if people buy the dip on semis and maybe they dump ServiceNow immediately because ServiceNow gets seen as like the collateral damage and only the rotation if we rotate out of semis. But as of now, that's what we're seeing. S&P 500 down 0.5%, as that is down red. Nvidia, very small green candle. I mean, until we see some real movement here, not sure if these guys are going to come back. Then again, bulls have been pretty resilient. Micron 705 testing below or getting into those low 700s. Again. All right, let's get into the macro. Let's get into the macro because we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So I think let's start off with all these 13Fs. Let's start off with these 13Fs and we'll try to dissect what is happening because this stuff was just weird. Okay, very weird. So let's start off with Buffett. Berkshire sells the bottom on UNH. Okay, they missed the run to 400. So that was this is all Q1. Okay, this is all Q1. So whatever they bought, they could have sold. Whatever they sold, I mean, they could have bought back, but you have to think logically, would they have bought back or not? They added 200% to their Google position. That was a win. They added 200% to their Google position. They sold 35% of their Chevron. Makes sense. Oil spiked in Q1. Why not? They bought Delta Airlines, which is confusing because Buffett is not a fan of airlines, which means Berkshire shouldn't be a fan of airlines, but they did. They added 200% to their New York Times position, which I still don't really get the thesis on New York Times. And then they bought Macy's, which I also don't understand. Macy's, out of all things. So new positions in a consumer retail company like Macy's and consumer airlines like Delta, adding to Google, sure, sold their entire Amazon position. Macy's, by the way, down 19% year to date, and then sold their entire UNH position. So Google makes sense. Getting rid of Amazon to me doesn't make that much sense, but if they want to pick one tech position, they want to double down, I get it, getting rid of Amazon for Google. Macy's and Delta, a little confusing. I think, it seems like Buffett's thinking oil prices will come down, and as a result, Delta will go up, which is not crazy to imagine. But also, Delta is one of the only airlines that has their own refinery, which is why they haven't been hit as hard as some of the other airlines this year. I mean, it's actually up this year, to be honest, whereas the other ones are all red. So maybe that's the play, but you would just think that capital it's like he's going for a mean reversion play with that capital. He's not looking for alpha. He's looking for something to recover, which I get it. But that was the plan on Delta and Macy's. I honestly just don't know. I'm not sure. And then, yes, UNH is down because he did sell UNH. It's not Buffett. That's fair. Every time I say Buffett, take it with a grain of salt. Berkshire is always Buffett for me, but it is Berkshire in general. Granted, I do think Greg Abel still talks to Buffett on the phone and says, hey, what do you think? Doubling down on Google? Like, I don't think he's completely independent, but maybe he is. Then we had Bill Ackman. Okay. Bill Ackman, we talked about it on Friday that he bought Microsoft. What I didn't know is he sold all of his Google to buy Microsoft. He sold all of his Google to buy Microsoft. So he didn't get the funds from Chipotle or from Hilton Hotels. He took it from Google. He said, to be clear, our sale of Google was not a bet against the company. We are very bullish long-term on Alphabet, but at current valuations and in light of our finite capital base, we use Google as a source of funds for Microsoft. Now, I actually believe him here. I genuinely believe him. I don't think he's being disingenuous. I legit believe that he felt it was smart to take profits on a name they bought at like $90, up 4x for them. I mean, like, it makes sense. And to rotate into Microsoft, it's a bit ballsy because Chris Hohn sold all of his Microsoft, another big famous money manager. And the other person that sold all their Microsoft, ironically, none other than the founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, in the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, sold 7.6 million shares of Microsoft. Now, I've heard all the rebuttals. It's in his foundation. It doesn't really matter. He has tons of Microsoft stock himself. Sure, I get it. However, 100% of Microsoft, this was their only tech stock. This is the only thing, there was the only tech exposure. It's Berkshire, which I guess by proxy has Apple in it, Waste Management, a bunch of other boring companies, because, you know, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation doesn't tend to be super risky, right? They want stuff that's super stable. Microsoft was the only thing they had that was, I guess you could say, a bit more high beta when it comes to technology. And they got rid of all of it. And it's a little confusing. I don't know if there's any signal here or if this is just noise, but it's one of those things where it's like, I know Bill Gates doesn't run the foundation on a day-to-day, but that's a lot of money. Like, we're not talking about a small amount of money that the foundation is managing. You would imagine if you get rid of, I mean, they manage $34 billion. You would imagine if they were going to sell a $5-7 billion position, they might ask the guy who runs the foundation, hey, do you think this is a good idea? Especially when it's, you know, the company that he ended up forming. So selling to pay for the Tesla short. Yeah, exactly. Bill has insider information as Microsoft code. Well, that's the other issue. That's the other issue, right? So the speculation over the weekend with these 13Fs is that, and then we got to talk about Altimeter Capital. Let's pull that up. The speculation of the weekend is that Bill Gates is he either has information or understands something around the AI trade that the rest of the market doesn't get, because Microsoft is seen as an AI name. So if you've got Microsoft that is being sold entirely by the owner, or by the founder of the company, it begs the question, has he learned something about software more broadly? Again, this is the guy who literally created the genesis of software as we know it today, Bill Gates. If I would imagine his take on, you know, people can not like him for a lot of different reasons, but I would imagine his take on AI and software is somewhat important to understand. And does he know something or understand something about where software is going that led him to think maybe the sell-off on Microsoft is reasonable? Or maybe it's just they needed the money. But then again, they don't need the money. It's Bill freaking Gates. He has plenty of money. The foundation has plenty of money, which also begs the question, why was he going to Jeffrey Epstein to raise money, right? So it's like, it's very confusing, but nonetheless, I thought that was very weird that Bill Gates sold all of his Microsoft and that Buffett basically bought Delta and Macy's. Those were the two of the most concerning things or confusing things that we had. Now, Brad Gerstner. This is something I don't think people are talking about what he did. So first of all, high-level overview. He bought ARM, Nvidia, Uber, CoreWeave, Axon. Okay. Sold Coupang, Confluent, Google, Zillow, and Mercado Libre. His top new positions are ARM and Axon. So Nvidia, Uber, CoreWeave, they already had. ARM and Axon is what they added for the first time. And then they sold out of Google. Brad Gerstner's never been the biggest fan of Google, but they officially took their profits on Google. They also sold 393 shares of Robinhood. They still have 899,000 shares of Hood. They sold 100,000 shares of Snowflake, still have a decent amount of it. They only sold 93,000 shares of Microsoft. They still have 1.1 million shares. And they sold 126,000 shares of Amazon. They still have 2 million shares. They have all of their Meta. In fact, they added 108,000 shares to Meta, added 1.2 million shares to Nvidia, and added 2.3 million shares to Uber. Here's the part no one's talking about. Who's supposed to do an interview with the CEO of our podcast with the CEO of Micron soon? Brad Gerstner. Who didn't add any Micron on the dip? Brad Gerstner. Watch what they do, not what they say. I mean, this was fascinating to me that he did not buy the dip on Micron, which means what? In the month of April, did he decide that Micron was super important? Because the cutoff here was March 31st, which, look, maybe I got to give him the benefit of the doubt that in April, he decided Micron was really important, which would surprise me because Altimeter is not a stupid fund. I mean, I've met people from Altimeter. They take a lot of time and do their due diligence. So by May, when he was on CNBC a couple weeks ago and he told Scott Wapner, oh yeah, Micron, super important. SK Hynix, super important. Memory, super important. I'm doing a podcast with the CEO of Micron coming out soon. It's super important. But they didn't buy the dip on Micron when it fell to 300? Really? Now, maybe they bought it in April and we don't know. Maybe. Again, there's a world where we give them the benefit of the doubt. Or Micron went up and he's riding the trend of the stock going up, and he's like, I need to hop on this trend. I need to interview the CEO, which would be very quick in terms of a 180. And Altimeter usually doesn't do that. They have a thesis and they try to stick to that thesis unless the thesis breaks. For them to recreate a thesis that quickly, it's not like they haven't known about Micron for a long time because the stock went up. Well, they would just be acting like any other typical retail investor that chases a stock would be acting, right? So it's am I going crazy, or is that, yeah, bro went full port April 1st? Maybe. But, and look, he would have got a good price. April, it was still at 450, 470, right? It was still at a decent price in April. I think really by the last week of April into May, that's when it just completely ran away. But I found that fascinating that they did not buy the dip on Micron, yet he goes on national TV and says, yeah, I love memory. I'm interviewing the CEO soon. It's like, why would you associate yourself with a company if you're not going to own part of the company? And remember, Brad Gerstner, every time he's interviewed a CEO, he has a stake in the company. I mean, that's the whole, but he's not doing these interviews for fun. He's not trying to become a content creator. Like if Microsoft, if Nadella wants to come on my show, I'm sorry, Microsoft, I can't buy, $500 million of your stock, but I would love to interview you. Gerstner actually can buy a lot of Microsoft, and that interview can have a lot of influence because the guy also owns a lot of stock. So it's a little confusing in my opinion, but nonetheless, that I thought was one of the bigger takeaways that we have right there. Some of the other stuff that we had, those were kind of the big ones. Oh, Stanley Drux. We got to talk about Drux. ServiceNow up 5%. It looks like the market maybe is having a little bit of rotation. There you go, $100. However, it's not rotating to the other plays. Salesforce, it's up a little bit. Adobe, it's up a little bit. I guess Adobe and Salesforce green in the midst of this red is good enough to think that there is a little bit of a rotation, but ServiceNow is really the one that's taking the attention right there. $100.19 on Mr. ServiceNow. Drux, what did he do? Wait, before we talk about Drux, we got to talk about a couple of other ones. So Howard Marks is out of Grab. He has officially sold his Grab. Now, someone else interesting did buy Grab, but Howard Marks is officially out. And he's at a new bank as well. So the two major international plays that Marks was going for, he's out. I think there's a couple of reasons for it. Number one, probably opportunity cost. I mean, at the end of the day, if he feels there's no instant alpha in those two names, we've seen Nubank and Grab obviously underperform this year as international plays. Both of those companies growing, above 50%, profitable, net cash on hand, at least for Grab, is like 50% of the market cap. But nonetheless, the stocks necessarily haven't moved. He did buy Credo, which I thought was interesting because Marks doesn't really touch those types of stocks. But also remember, Oaktree is managed by Brookfield, as Marks gave up a decent chunk of control. I think he gave up all of his control. So I'm not even sure he's making directive decisions. And Brookfield is treating Oaktree as a credit play more than a stock play. So if they didn't see the instant alpha inside of Grab, then there's obviously a lot of money they could have put that $50 million into that would get them a better yield. Because once again, they prefer credit over stocks and fixed income over stocks. That's kind of how Howard Marks has governed the latter half of his career. So it actually makes sense that they did it. Renaissance Technologies ended up buying Grab. This is the late Jim Simon's fund. And I thought that was actually interesting. These guys are a quant fund, but they do make directional bets. Their three largest positions last year were Hood, Palantir, and I think it was Amazon. I know it was Hood and Palantir for sure. And then I think the other one was Amazon. But they ended up buying Grab. So I thought that was interesting. You had one big guy leave, probably because he wanted more credit exposure. You had another big 13F come in. And that was at least the biggest update I saw on Grab. There were some other funds that were going in, and we'll talk about those. But Howard Marks, Oaktree, and Renaissance getting in was the biggest one. Now, Druckenmiller, this was also kind of crazy, okay? He sold Google. All of it. And he bought SanDisk. He sold Google and he bought SanDisk. I don't think Druckenmiller is still holding SanDisk. I don't think so. I think he got in and out. Now, granted, it really exploded in April and May. So, we don't know what he did in April and May, which means he could have, been out, and we'll find out in the next 45 days. But he sold Google, sold DoorDash, and bought SanDisk, Twilio, and Humana. SanDisk, Twilio, and Humana. So these are his top 5 positions. EWZ calls and RSP calls, equal weight S&P, are collectively both 10% of the portfolio. Then you have NTRA at 18%, INSM at 5.5%. Then you have TSM at 5%. Sold a bunch of the banks, sold a bunch of Amazon, sold a bunch of RSP, rotated that into calls. And then he completely exited Wolf, the financials, Zillow, Flutter, and Restoration Hardware. New position in SanDisk. The exact amount he bought in SanDisk was, if I can see it right here, I don't have it on this picture, so I'll get it in a second, but that was the brand new position. Broadcom as well, they bought 195,000 more shares in Broadcom. So that's what you had. Druck gave up on Wolf. That is correct. He did give up on Wolf. Wow, look at Service now, baby. Absolutely taken off 6.4%. I don't think this is ServiceNow specific, aka there's not some headline the street is obsessed about. This is a stock that's been hated because of the software rotation. I think this is, yeah, you got Adobe and CRM finally starting to pump a little bit. You got Adobe and CRM starting to pump. Microsoft and Palantir are not. Again, their multiples are a bit more aggressive than the other software names. Snowflake as well. Snowflake just turned red. See, I wish all the software names were green because it would give more credibility to the move we're seeing in Adobe, Salesforce, and ServiceNow. They're not, which means it's not full software rotation, but at least it's somewhat software rotation, which is decent. Claude's biggest holding is now ServiceNow. That is correct. The Claude portfolio recently doubled down on ServiceNow. They also sold Microsoft for Zeta, which I thought was incredibly interesting. South Korea's Kospi Exchange futures down 5%, and they got halted for 5 minutes. That's down 5. EWY is down 2.83. That's the ETF for South Korea. SK Hynix and Samsung, you know, we're going to be down if Micron's down. Where is Micron? Micron holding 700. Micron holding 700. IGV, are we at least green there? See, IGV is still red because the majority of software is red. So this is more of a ServiceNow rotation than anything. And Adobe and Salesforce are trying to have some sympathy green, but realistically, this is ServiceNow 100 to 1. I mean, Bill McDermott did say he thinks ServiceNow can be $1 trillion company. It's at 100 billion, so he's projecting a 10x. I don't know if that was enough of a headline to get the street excited, but we're seeing a little rotation here on software. So those were the 13 Fs. Those were the 13 Fs. Oh, well, hold on. So someone's asking, is ServiceNow going up because of the 13 Fs? So let's check this right now. Maybe. There weren't massive buys on ServiceNow in the 13 Fs. So this is all that's been disclosed right here. You had Polk Capital Management add 30% to their position. You had 2 new funds buy up about 150 million. I mean, that's not a lot of money, quite frankly, in the context of these funds. Tiger Global sold 30% of their ServiceNow. They still have 1.5 million shares. Torrey Funds added 50,000 shares, and then Hillman Capital Management added 3,000 shares. So I don't think the ServiceNow rotation is because all the 13 Fs disclosed were like, oh, everyone's buying ServiceNow, because everyone's not buying ServiceNow. I mean, no one actually really, really important, quite frankly, did buy ServiceNow. You don't have Buffett, you don't have Druckenmiller, you don't have Ackman, none of these guys. It feels more semi to software kind of rotation, but we're going to see if this happens. Mamba says this is nothing. ServiceNow will be down tomorrow morning. I mean, 6% is definitely something. Don't tell me 6% is nothing. ServiceNow might be down tomorrow morning. 7% now, but 7% in the overnight markets. I'm not saying it has to be up 7% tomorrow, but that is a move. Like, that is, especially because it's one of the only software names that's making that move. It's not tracking IGV. So I would be surprised if it goes red tomorrow, but we'll find out when the market opens tomorrow, and we'll see what ends up happening. Cool. Okay, so that's what we have with the 13 Fs. Is there anything big that I missed? Druckenmiller on SanDisk, which I think he sold after that parabolic run. Druckenmiller is not the guy to hold on for names for a long time. He's been really open about the fact that, you know, if he sees a lot of money, I mean, in fact, he sold Nvidia pretty early, but he also was up 4x. So SanDisk going up. I mean, if he got in at 500-600, he's up a double. I don't know if he feels that confident in it. Maybe he does, but we won't know for another 45 days. Berkshire doubling down on Google. I thought that was kind of bullish. Macy's and Delta a bit more confusing. And yeah, then you got Bill Ackman swapping Google for Microsoft. So that's what we had with the 13 Fs. We don't have Leopold's out yet. Eventually, we're going to see what he does if he has to. If not, then he sold everything, went to treasuries, and he doesn't have to disclose because he's under 100 million, which maybe that's the case. That would be kind of crazy. Literally everyone on X is obsessed with this guy, and I get it. Like, he had a massive, massive return, and he deserves all the credit for it, but everyone is waiting for his 13F, even more than all the other companies. 10 years still pumping right there, 4.603. But right now, we have not officially seen any update from what he's doing. UNH, that is down 5.8%. So again, Leopold is not out yet. In terms of grab, I mean, look, the big guys, some of the big guys are selling, some of the big guys are adding. Institutional holdings are still at 80%. Look, my simple opinion on this is, at the end of the day, they're growing adjusted EBITDA 50%. They're growing top line revenue 25%. I can't ask that much more from the company. If the stock's not moving, the stock's not moving. Look at Uber. They're doing freaking $10 billion of free cash flow. Stock's down 9% year to date. At this point, I'm kind of just over it. Like, I know SoFi investors relate. Growing 40%, stock's stuck. Like, either the stock's eventually going to move because the earnings will catch up to it, and it's a game of patience. And if you don't want to be in the story, then you get the hell out and you move to something else. You go chase Micron, do whatever you want to do. But if you are, you just got to be patient with it. And if you don't have that patience, that's okay. But, investing is a long-term game. And a lot of times people feel like the gain should come quicker than not, which in this high-flying market where every micro cap under the sun is pumped up to the oblivion, I get it when something's not moving, but I'm kind of at peace with it. And just like, the investors who've been buying ServiceNow all year, getting a little bit of a run right here, probably are also at peace that they'd rather be in something they feel is safe and reasonable, that is actually growing and at a good multiple versus chasing the new shiny object. And so everyone has to kind of make their own decisions here for how they're thinking of some of these names that are stuck. Zeta as well, right? Growing 50%, 1703. That is down 1% right here. Next Era is thinking of buying Dominion for $76 billion. That is also a pretty wild piece of news that we got on Saturday. And the ticker symbol for Dominion Energy is ticker symbol D. Is that moving up? That is up 11%. There you go. Yeah. This one actually makes sense to me. The consolidation of energy. I think we're going to see a lot more of that happening over the coming weeks, or not over the coming weeks, over the coming years as data centers require more energy. But will this be approved? It's a different question if that's actually going to be able to go through from the regulators. Bitcoin, we are still down. A lot of you guys want my thoughts on the Drake album. I'll talk about it at the end of the show. I will say I've been sitting with Iceman and I really like it. I think it's his best work since Views. And the other two albums, I said I wasn't a fan. I've been listening to them too. There's some bangers on the other two albums. Like, I'm not going to lie. I think he crushed it. But you guys don't want to hear about that. So we'll talk about it at the end. But I do think I've been listening to it nonstop all weekend. I think he did crush a decent chunk of these albums. Okay, so let's talk about some of the Trump stuff and China stuff and get some updates on that, because that has also been a topic of importance. So again, the reason we're down today, oil futures are up. The reason oil futures are up is because Trump is basically threatening attacks on Iran again. The market is a bit afraid of what's going on there. Now, in terms of China, Bitcoin just under 77,000. What do we have right here? What about the losers, though? Will they move in a down market? Don't think I get your point. No, it's not that the losers will move in a down market. Well, that's kind of the hard part about being. So, for example, and we talked about this on Friday, Meta, right? Loser all year. If we get a 10% drop on the S&P, that will continue. I can pretty much say with a lot of certainty, Meta will be down. Meta's not going to be the rebound when we're down 10% on the S&P. However, ServiceNow's up right now. The entire market's red. Now, if this entire move erases tomorrow, which I think this 7% move would be erased if Micron would be up, 5% tomorrow, that would kind of explain the rotation again. My broader point here is I think the names that are beaten up maybe get beaten up a little less if we go down a lot. Whereas the names that have been running like I don't even think this is controversial to say. I feel like this is incredibly logical. Like, is SoFi really going to $9 if the S&P falls 10%, or is it going back to where bottomed on March 30th, which was around 1450, which the downside from 1540 is not that. Maybe it goes to 1250, right? Which is ugly from 1540, but it's not getting chopped by 50% because it's already down 40% for the year. So my broader point here is either you think the opportunity cost is too much and you chase the thing that is going up, which if we do get an ugly market, that thing's going to get hit pretty hard. Or you just DCA and eventually, if your thesis plays out, your thesis plays out. If your thesis doesn't play out, then you just got the stock wrong. And it is what it is, right? Time will tell if you get the stock right or wrong. But that's my broader point about accepting being stuck in a loser and, then deciding if the rotation here ends up making sense. It is surprising, though, guys, that ServiceNow's upset. I mean, futures are pretty ugly red. Bitcoin's got like oil's pumping. Everything's getting dumped pretty hard here. Microsoft is down 1% and ServiceNow is up 7%. And there's no specific headline. So look at that. Salesforce just hit 1.24. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science to be like, okay, Salesforce and ServiceNow have been dead money all year. The market's rotating a little bit. So maybe in the midst of some pretty ugly price action on high beta, low beta gets a little bit of a bid. I don't think that's crazy, but obviously we got to see what ends up happening. Okay, China-Trump meeting. What happened there? China is going to restore market access for U.S. beef. China will purchase $17 billion of agricultural products in 2026 through 2028. China confirmed their, quote, shared goal to denuclearize North Korea. I don't know what the hell that means. The United States is not going to denuclearize North Korea, and you damn sure know that China is not going to denuclearize North Korea. So that headline is literally irrelevant, in my opinion. China will address U.S. concerns regarding supply chain shortages related to rare earths and other critical minerals. I guess that's bullish, but then again, China continues to have a lot of leverage when it comes to that stuff. So I'm not sure how likely they are to give up all that leverage. And then China will buy 200 Boeing jets, which once again, that's not a headline. So my opinion on this, objectively, I think this meeting was a failure. President Donald Trump secures historic deals with China. Tell me about what any of this is historic for. Like buying 200 Boeing jets, which they do every 3 years, is not historic. Buying more beef, not historic. Sharing a goal to denuclearize North Korea, there's nothing historic about that. And both countries are not going to do anything about that. Like they don't want to upset Rocket Man because he does have nukes. And, you know, maybe he's not afraid to use them. And rare earth minerals, I mean, they've been talking about this for the past 2 years. So I think nothing happened in the meeting. I thought they got nothing done. I'm going to call a spade a spade. When the administration gets stuff done, I give them credit. When the administration gets nothing done, I have to critique it. And I don't think they got anything done here. The goal was help resolve the Iran situation. I don't see how the Iran situation was even kind of resolved. In fact, Trump is just tweeting pictures of himself walking with an alien. It's not really helping opening up the Strait of Hormuz. So I don't really know exactly what they got done, but this is what the to frame the win with.
The things they've already done is we had a number of meat exporting facilities in the U.S. that had been deregistered by the Chinese. The Chinese have already moved to re-register them, which means that they can export to China once again. This is beef. This is chicken. The Chinese have also agreed to review a bunch of our biotechnology traits, right, where we have certain goods that go to China that have to be approved, scientifically. And we have the 200 Boeings that they've agreed to do. This is all on top of the 25 million metric tons of soybeans agreed to last October. So there are a variety of very concrete things that are already happening, already going into place.
If the whole point of spending U.S. taxpayer dollars and taking all of our business professionals to China was for them to buy more soybeans, it could have been a Zoom call. So for anyone thinking the goal was not to resolve the Iran situation, I don't think the goal was to deal with soybeans. I think the goal was to, hey, maybe you guys can help us out because the entire global oil supply kind of depends on this Strait of Hormuz thing. And nothing got done there. In fact, it only feels like it got escalated, which is why the futures are dumping, because the market thinks Trump is going to likely take more military action.
Morning, regional intelligence sources tell Fox News they assess the Iranians believe they can drag out the current stalemate for at least 2 weeks. But the prevailing assessment inside Iran is that President Trump may resort to restarting military action, and Tehran is now deliberately pursuing a strategy of deception and delay with the hopes that buying time will complicate any potential return to war. These sources say Iranian officials are looking at the World Cup and America's 250th anniversary as a backstop that could work in their favor. Tension remains high across the Middle East as the region waits to see if the war will resume in the days ahead. So far, efforts toward a diplomatic solution have failed, with Iran unwilling to make the necessary concessions to reach a deal. President Trump spoke on his return flight from China, indicating he didn't like the first sentence of the Iranian response to the U.S. peace proposal.
I looked at it, and if I don't like the first sentence, I just throw it away.
What was the first sentence?
An unacceptable sentence. Because they're fully read no nuclear, and if they have any nuclear of any form, I don't read the rest.
So 20 years is not enough for you. It's got to be a
No, 20 years is enough, but the level of guarantee from them is not enough. In other words, it's got to be a real 20 years.
Overnight, President Trump shared a series of AI images on Truth Social. One shows the president standing at a control center that says Space Force with outgoing missiles on the screen behind him. The other shows him commanding the Navy with the caption, "It was the calm before the storm." This comes as the Iranians have accused the United States of changing their negotiating position.
An attack on our nuclear facilities has already taken place once, and they claim they completely destroyed them. Yet now they are once again talking about attacking the facilities. These contradictory statements truly indicate the depth of America's confusion regarding their objectives in this war.
On Saturday, the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group returned to the United States after a carrier deployment that was the longest since the Vietnam War. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth called the work of these sailors phenomenal.
Absolute resolve, epic fury.
So look, I mean, it's a little concerning that once again, oil is spiking, the 10-year is spiking to levels we haven't seen since April of last year, which is when the market fell 30%. And that Trump feels like he's continuing to, I guess, want to take military action. Now, remember every time over the past basically month where Trump got on some interview or got on some press conference or got in front of an audience and was like, I thought the market would have fell even more, as Adobe goes up 1% right here. I think if he escalates military confrontation, he is not afraid of the market going down. Because even when the market was at just under 7,000, which was still a nice rebound from 630, when he was making these remarks about, I thought the market would have fell even more. Now we're at 730 and we were at 750 last week. If we go back down to those levels, he's still going to probably feel, hey, you know, the markets are up a lot from where they were March 30th. If we actually go back to March 30th lows, I think it would be devastating. Like, I think it's possible, but I mean, I think it would be pretty ugly. It would probably confirm Tom Lee's thesis about this 15% drawdown we might be getting. But I don't think he thinks it's going to get that bad. Now, granted, the market's up so much. If he were to go down 30 points, 730 to 700, we would still be at 7,000 S&P, which, I mean, if you asked us on March 30th if we could get to 7,000, probably most people would have been like, nope, 7,000's out the window. Now people are thinking it's going to be above 8,000. So I don't think that many people would be as upset as they were in March. And I think Trump would still have some leverage, which is why he might be thinking he has the ability to use military confrontation. But what I think would really stop military confrontation is the bond market, because if he does escalate militarily, oil's going to spike up. And then this 10-year, I mean, it's going higher. Like, inflation's going up. We have the worst CPI and PPI in 4 years. And when the 10-year goes up, stocks probably have a broader chance to go down. So I don't know, guys. This one's feeling a little iffy. We've been up a lot. I don't think anyone would be surprised if we take a bit of a breather. There have been plenty of toppy signs all over the market. Random penny stocks going up like crazy. It's not to say that the run that we've had, primarily driven by semis, was fake, because every time someone says that, you look at the earnings growth and you're like, oh, these companies are not crazy value. Like, they're just not. Some of them have a little bit of an aggressive multiple, but we're not talking about .com 2.0 type of multiples on AMD or SanDisk or Micron or any of this stuff. But at the end of the day, they typically don't have parabolic types of moves like they're having. And, you know, sometimes that ends up leading to a little bit more pain. Bitcoin, as you can see right here, is going down. Also, this is when I think Intel also down 5%. This is also when we have to see how many people actually have conviction, right? So for, you know, the people that were going crazy over Micron and SanDisk, if we do get a substantial dip, how many people believe that in 2028 they will grow earnings? How many people believe in 2029 they will grow? This is a company that was worth half of TSM. Do you believe over the next 5 years they have the earnings power to actually justify being worth that much and get the 20, 30 times multiple that people have been calling for on some of the plays that have historically been cyclical? Because if they do, these are going to be great dips to buy. But now that price action has gone the opposite direction, and we'll see tomorrow if this bounces up again, this could end up flipping pretty quickly. This is when conviction is really tested, right? How much do people actually believe in the Intel thesis if they bought it at 120 when it's $2 away from going below 100? So for all the people complaining about FOMO over the past couple of weeks, some of the price action you're seeing right here is why you don't complain about FOMO when it happens. And you know, when Poet was going to 23 and then the day after falls to 15, like, that's why you don't complain about FOMO, because if you can't stomach the volatility up or down, then you might just as well just not be in it. Some people say that's cope. Okay, that could be cope, but cope's a lot better than losing money. And most of the time, if you're having FOMO, you end up losing money. So it's hard to time it on the right side, and you just never know when things turn. Bitcoin right there, 77,000. As that one's just above 76. Where's Rocket Lab? Are we green there? Gold is dumping. Is it? Rocket Lab down 4, just fell below 120. Again, I love Rocket Lab. I do think this 60% move in 2 days made no sense. I'm just going to be honest. I own Rocket Lab, and even as an owner of it, I don't know how you justify that big of a move. I mean, you can, but it's also like, all right, like at some point, is this thing turning over? Or are we just going to 150? Is just the SpaceX proxy? Now, I do think it deserves to be above 70. It's just, does it deserve to be at 130? I don't know. Gold down 2, silver down 4. Okay, so you're seeing pretty much every macro asset start to take a little bit of a hit right here. Yeah, it is a chance to roll covered calls. That's fair. So I think some people are probably a little bit happier than not that it is a chance to roll some of their covered calls right here as well. Rocket Lab will be fine long term. That is correct. It will be fine long term. The question is, did it deserve to spike up to 137? I don't know. I don't know. Some of these names, they got up there. They got up there. Micron was 818 the topper. Is that getting right back up there? Like, again, we talked about this on Thursday and Friday because we were starting to see some weakness, right? Like the day Nvidia got to 240 overnight, which, look, I love Nvidia. I don't know if it deserved to just spike up to 240 that easily. Just being honest, like that was a lot of, like, I believe Nvidia can justify a 240 price target, but the velocity of the move, when that happens parabolically, it's not settling. It shouldn't make you feel good because usually what goes up comes down that quickly. So seeing Nvidia kind of chill out a little bit is not crazy. Seeing some of these names consolidate a little bit is also not crazy. And tomorrow morning, I think, will be the first day of the week where we see if that actually starts to take place. Broadcom down 1%, Amazon down 1%, Meta as well down 1%. Now, why is this market gaining all of this momentum up and down? It's because retail is trading with intensity. Take a look at some of these updated stats because we are seeing retail come in pretty aggressively. Retail investors have accounted for 25% of the total trading volume in the largest 3x leveraged NASDAQ 100 ETF since 2021. They've also represented 19% of volume in the largest 3x levered S&P 500 ETFs over the same period. Retail volume has accounted for 14 and 12% of volume in 2x leveraged S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100 ETFs. On the other hand, retail share of trading volume in non-leveraged S&P 500 and NASDAQ ETFs is only 11 and 10%. So retail's trading double the amount of what they're putting their money into in terms of trading volumes. In the levered versions, 2x and 3x, as you can see right there, 19% on the S&P and 25% on the NASDAQ, versus 11% and 10% in ETFs with no leverage. Like the 3x, not even the 2x levered, the 3x levered ones have the majority of the inflows. And I would imagine in South Korea, this is probably even worse, given how much leverage is there. So there's definitely leverage in the system. And the reason that's important to bring up is because if we get any little bit of a haircut, which could easily be bought up if the narrative stays intact, but if the narrative is not staying intact, then obviously, that leverage cuts both ways. And you could potentially see some downside momentum if that leverage gets really aggressive, which is kind of what we're seeing in a lot of different areas of the broader market right now. I think Cerebras was kind of a way to understand that. It debuted up 96% on top of being up 96%. The 2x levered Cerebras ETF launched on Friday. So leverage is out there and it doesn't look like it's slowing down. Japan was down about 5%. Where is it now? Japan's now down about 2%. Okay, so Japan's making a little bit of a comeback. Kospi as well was down 5. Now it's down 1.9. So you're seeing that come back a little bit. Broader S&P still red. Figma, where did they close on Friday? Figma closed up 13%. That one was down about 1.5%. Again, that was at 16, bounced up to 25, closed at 23. Another software name that was relatively resilient, which was nice to see on Friday, given the bloodbath, that a software name had good earnings, and those earnings actually weren't that bad. There were a lot of meta buys into 13F. Yes, there were. So the top 10 stocks that were bought by super investors so far, I think we have pretty much All of them. Yeah, 77 out of the 80 filings have came out. Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Visa, Disney, Uber, Adobe. So that's like your kind of core software name. Fiserv, Waters Corp, WAT, and then Sunbeast, Sunbelt Rentals Holding. I actually don't know this company. This one year to date is up 3%. Sunbelt Rentals. This one made your top 10 in terms of buys. ServiceNow is up over 6% after hours. The others, pretty basic names that we all know. This was one of the different ones. So in Q1, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Visa, Sunbelt, Disney, Uber, Adobe. I mean, Uber, lots of free cash flow. I think the street's just like, hey, eventually the stock will catch up to the free cash flow. Adobe, lots of free cash flow. What is Adobe's free cash flow multiple? I think it's at like 11 times. Is it less than that? I know Salesforce is at like 10 times. Yeah, Adobe's is at 10 times. I mean, like, this is relatively cheap for an institutional investor that's putting hundreds of millions of dollars to work. So it makes sense that they're taking a stab on some of these names. Again, Salesforce and ServiceNow were not in that list, but maybe you're getting a bit of a rotation there across the entire board. ServiceNow, again, 101.35 as that's green. Does Sunbelt rent data centers? That's a good question, because if they do, maybe the market's excited about that. Speaking of data centers, here was Ken Griffin over the weekend about how he's becoming very sad about what AI can do, but this is also why the data center build out is not slowing down, because this is what AI can now do.
Let me just, share a few thoughts with you on this. Number one is, in the last few months, there has been a step change function in the productivity of the AI toolkit. It is profoundly more powerful than it was just 9 months ago. And for us at Citadel, that has allowed us to unleash a much broader array of use cases for AI. And it has been really interesting to watch, to be blunt, work that we would usually do with people with masters and PhDs in finance over the course of weeks or months being done by AI agents over the course of hours or days. So these are not mid-tier white collar jobs. These are like extraordinarily high skilled jobs being, I'm going to pick a word, being automated by agentic AI. And I got to tell you, I went home one Friday actually fairly depressed by this, because you could just see how this was going to have such a dramatic impact on society. And when you witness it in your own four walls, when you see work that used to be man years of work being done in days or weeks, it's like, wow, like that's the first time I've seen real impact in our four walls.
So you're talking about math PhDs designing complex and sophisticated trading algorithms for Citadel that are being automated away because of AI. And that's bullish data centers, bullish semiconductors, bullish the broader life cycle of AI from an investment perspective, but it's a little bearish labor markets. And it begs the question in terms of what's going to happen for humanity. When we speak about automation, Figure continues to really understand marketing. They put a human against the robot for the past 2 hours. The human, as you can see right there, I tuned in, this is live at the right time. You can see the human, he's a little tired and he's stretching. The robot's not. This is their intern, by the way. You can just tell, look, he's tired. He doesn't even have headphones in, bro. He's bored as hell. He did 10,000 packages, about 900 more than the Figure robot. So he's beating the robot, but think of how annoying this work is. Think of how boring this work is. Think about how remedial this work is. Think about, he took a couple bathroom breaks already. He's definitely earning his internship right now. He's definitely earning his internship. But, the robot, yeah, might make some mistakes here and there, but no workman's comp, no health benefits, nothing. He's just getting the job done. And so I would imagine this robot thing becomes more serious. Yeah, there you go. Look, he took a 10-minute break. Look at him on his phone. doing what a useless human would do, scrolling through Twitter. How is that productive for society? Not even a little bit. That robot during that 10-minute break got shit done. It earned its keep. This is what's coming for the world. Oh, it's California mandatory to take a 10-minute break. See, I don't know how much California is going to double down on their mandatory requirements for non-living things to take a 10-minute break because, you know, they're not alive. And if the robot breaks, it doesn't really matter because it's not a human, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, this is absolutely coming. This is absolutely coming. And I think it's obvious that it's coming. This is not good for humanity at all. Probably not. But again, to counter that, it is because, you know, do you want your kids doing this type of backbreaking work? You know, this is a relatively simple example, but when it comes to intense work in high intensity warehouses and factories, we kind of would want that stuff to eventually get automated away. But, you know, to the point of your argument, that's a lot of jobs. And at the end of the day, those jobs help the world go round. And if those jobs get automated, where does that capital go? So that's a deep philosophical question that I don't think anyone has the answer for. But the point is it's happening. It's happening. And I think that speaks to Ken. I mean, again, Ken Griffin is talking about highly sophisticated math PhDs, people that are probably making, you know, $500,000 to $1 million a year in base comp before you even think about their stock grants, getting automated away. Which is really good for Citadel because that's a lot of money that they save if they don't have to pay those humans that much money because maybe the bots are 1/10 of that cost in tokens. And then you see it on the blue collar side as well. So it's not just, you know, factory workers. It's also some of the smartest people on the planet in white collar jobs that could be automated away. The intern did more. Yes, the intern did do more, even with the breaks and bathroom. But I mean, you know, an extra 100 more is like 900 more is any factory would take the robot over having to deal with all the issues you have to deal with when it comes to a human, even if it's a couple hundred packages more. Look, I just tuned in. He's going back to the bathroom again. Look at that. I don't know how many times he's used the bathroom, but probably enough times where it's obvious why you would pick a robot over a human. Yeah, no health insurance either. So again, all of this is bullish AI. All of this is bullish Nvidia. All of this is bullish, you know, all the things that we usually talk about. But when does it happen? How does it manifest? How quickly does this stuff actually come to fruition? And then obviously what's the value of the labor market when this stuff ends up taking place, which is why I think you can't get too bearish on semis, even if we're a little red in the overnight. Now, I do think we've gone so parabolic that we probably need a little bit of a breather, but will we get it? Who knows? But given what we're seeing in robots and all these other different avenues, it's hard to get, you know, that bearish when it comes to the broader semis. This is a chart of all of the different price increases that we've seen across the board since the war began. And this is also having an impact on inflation. So fertilizer, which is the thing that we don't talk about enough, that is obviously going up like crazy. Palm oil, coal, rice, Brent crude, diesel, gasoline, crude, jet fuel, European natural gas, sulfur. Again, the markets continue to go up, and so do these, which again makes it very confusing. But I guess we're starting to see the first little retrace in terms of how the market is interpreting this. What do you think about ServiceNow? I don't think it ever deserved to go to 80, and I'm actually very happy that the market's. Look, ServiceNow going up to me is emblematic of maybe if the market collapses, some of these names that are beat up won't collapse as much as the names that are up like crazy. They'll probably still get beat up. But I think it makes sense, at least for the market, to rotate some of that capital. Now, let's say Nvidia flips green overnight. I think ServiceNow probably goes red. If it's really that correlated with the semis trade, you kind of have to be a little bearish semis to, I think, meaningfully go long on some of the software names, but time will tell. Samsung down, or Samsung up 2.7%. Union and management began another round of pay talks. Okay, so that's helping Kospi right now, as that's in South Korea. That's probably also helping the S&P. The green candle, very little green candle. We were down 0.65, now we're down 0.49. but that is also now green. Bitcoin, are we above 77? Bitcoin 77.1. Mamba says, I can't wait to see it down tomorrow. Dude, you're going to be right. If the semis flip, I mean, look, my whole point on ServiceNow being up right now is because the semis are down. I'm in agreement with you. If the semis flip, ServiceNow is going down. So we haven't seen a world in which the semis go up and software names go up because, again, I think all the liquidity for the semis are coming from software. But if we see it flip, we flip. If not, then this ends up going down. AI is getting a little weird. This is another signal that things are, I don't want to say toppy, but just like some of this stuff is unnecessary. A company raised $1 million to create a $159 AI bookmark.
Last year, our viral mark launch blew the internet away. A bookmark that kept track of what you're reading. But amidst all the noise, we wanted to create something that truly felt like it was built for you. I'm Eason, founder of Mark, and over the past year, we listened to all of your feedback and redesigned Mark from the ground up. This is Mark 2, a better tool for collecting your ideas when reading. It highlights passages, records your thoughts, and builds a personal library of everything you choose to keep. It goes wherever your book goes, and it comes in 2 parts, bookmark and highlighter. Bookmark lives in the book. And with customization, it's a great way to show the world your taste. Highlighter is where magic happens. It has a scanner, allowing you to save your favorite quote, and a voice recorder for your favorite ideas, allowing you to engage with your readings without leaving the moment.
This just feels like, this just feels excessive. Like, it's reading a book. Like, a bookmark, I remember when I used to read books, that sounds so bad, but like I still read a lot every day. I do a lot of reading. I just don't read books. I would just use like some random paperweight to hold like my place in the book. Like it wasn't that serious. Or I would like bend the page a little bit. And that would be like, AI bookmark is kind of stupid and also unnecessary. Now, if they sell a bunch of them, I'll stand corrected. But the fact that some of our AI efforts are going to make sure that you can remember what you read on a page, which is kind of the point of reading. And like, you know, your brain kind of supposed to remember some of that stuff. That's the whole point of read. Like, I don't know. It's a little weird. It's a little weird. But yeah, the bookmark lives in the book. I thought that's what it's supposed to naturally do, but we found an AI angle to it. So we got that stuff happening in the AI market or something. This is my point, guys, by the way, around the AI hardware. I am so bearish on AI hardware. So when everyone's like, oh, AI phone, AI pendant, I'm like, no. None of that. AI glasses, no, none of it. I think it's all stupid. I think we'll all fail. I do not think any of it will work. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. That's my take. AI bookmarks, I don't think it's going to be a thing. I think honestly, your phone, your iPhone or your Pixel is going to do a lot of this stuff. I just don't believe AI hardware is going to be as transformative as people think. Maybe in certain use cases like video games or healthcare or in factories, but as a consumer adopted product, I just don't think it's going to work. And this is the type of stuff that you're seeing, AI bookmarks. Like, are people really going to spend money on this stuff or not? And if it's not, then, you know, that's not something that I think we can be too excited about, including humanoid robots. I disagree on that. Humanoid robots, I think, are going to be very, very bullish because I don't think they're really a consumer product. I know Elon has talked about it in the context of consumer adoption and doing your dishes and all that stuff. But realistically, inside of a factory is where the main use cases are going to come from. Now, eventually it'll get good enough to be in your home and, you know, it's probably will be valuable there. But you're talking about $80 trillion of GDP globally is labor. That being replaced, I think, is a lot more exciting than, you know, a pendant or a bookmark as a new AI device. Jefferies, AI is driving about 80% of the S&P 500 returns this year with their AI basket up 30%. But it is still the cheapest sector on a price to earnings growth basis at 0.6x of a peg. This is based on a 25x forward earnings multiple. So once again, AI is driving all the growth, but AI is growing the earnings enough so that the multiple is still below 1 on a peg basis, which is actually very reasonable, which is why I think some of these dips might have a better chance of being bought up versus not, simply because, you know, the growth is there to justify the multiple, and the multiple is actually compressing. Here's what Tom Lee had to say about some of the price action on Friday.
Next 3 years, maybe even 10, 20 years from its leadership in AI. But I kind of agree with Professor Siegel that, if I look at the next 3 months, so not 3 years, I do think three tests are emerging for the stock market. One is, of course, how is the Fed going to react to both the underlying inflation risks? The second is the market doesn't really like when inflation is a concern and yields are rising. And I do think we are seeing it now in PPI. I think there is in the pipeline a lot of inflation, not structural, but just inflation shock, but also energy shortage. And the third, of course, is, I think we have a lot of IPO and that's a lot of supply. So I think we're going to face some tests later this summer. So I think the risk reward is still great for tech, but I'm not sure about the broader market.
How would you respond to that? I mean, the market, some have suggested, has been whistling past the graveyard of this tremendous, like other parts of the market in the environment that we could be in with inflation in the pipeline, as you said, and shocks in inflation, nothing structural, but nonetheless concerning, the rise in oil, the backup in yields. But then if I sit back and I say, well, how can I lean in now to parabolic moves that have already taken place? And at the same time, I don't like any of these other areas of the market because I agree with Tom. Then what in the world do I do?
All right. So, Scott, I'm going to say something that might make the audience think I'm puzzling, but the move in DRAM, in my opinion, is actually somewhat defensive because we know that if you're worried about inflation and petroleum shortage, there's even bigger shortages in memory. So like people are buying what's going to work even if the macro environment gets tough. And I think that's why it makes sense for semis and DRAM to still do really well. And so I think that this pullback is going to be viable there. But to me, if someone's trying to make a bigger bet on tech, I think the really attractive risk reward is still Mag 7 and software. And Bill Ackman's buy of Microsoft really reinforces it. That's why software is actually still among our top picks right now.
Wow.
So Tom's on the software camp, the Mag 7 camp. By the way, how incredible has it been for all of us to witness one of the greatest hedge fund managers on the planet, Bill Ackman, becoming a retail investor, just buying beaten up Mag 7s? I mean, dude, these guys give him $20 billion to manage. And what does he do? Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Meta, Uber. Oh, a little different. Uber. I mean, just like he's a retail investor now. I mean, like, and that's not a bad thing. It's kind of incredible. His job is to find alpha. He missed the entire semi trade. It's okay if you or I missed the semi trade. We're just dinky little retail investors. This guy is supposed to be managing $20 billion. He's not supposed to be missing a lot of those moves, right? He missed the entire semis move. Now you could say that's not his style. It's like, okay, but like investors still want gains, right? Like he didn't have to go invest in Micron. He could have found Marvell. There's a lot of names that haven't gone absolutely to the moon in such a short time frame, but they still had a better return than Amazon and Meta, which have been pretty much losers over the past couple of years compared to some of this other stuff. I mean, like, it's kind of incredible that this is why people give him money. And I just wonder if that ends up being the strategy that works out. Now, I think yes, because Microsoft and Meta are incredible companies. And I do think it makes sense that he sold Google. I mean, Google probably will do well, but at the end of the day, like Google, come on, it went from 90 to 400. So that one ended up returning really well with relatively little risk. But the fact that Tom says Mag 7 in software is your best play in the face of this market, and Bill Ackman's kind of confirming it with his move, I think is interesting. But his broader interesting point is that DRAM could be defensive because memory is in shortage, which I thought sounded like when Tom Lee said back in February, oil going up is good for the economy. Remember he made that argument that oil going up is good because America will drill, baby drill, and like that'll be good for the... I don't really agree with that, but nonetheless, his argument is Micron and these memory names can't really go down that much because they're in a shortage. And if you think a commodity is in a shortage and there's a lot of demand for that commodity, in this case, not energy, but memory for GPUs, then obviously that would be a supply-demand imbalance that would be beneficial, even in a high beta downturn for the market, which if Micron holds up, if we get a real drawdown, that would be quite impressive because it means it's ignoring the high beta nature of its parabolic move because memory is just that important, which obviously would be pretty incredible to see. Bitcoin, are we still red? We are still red, 77, 215. Where is Nebius? Nebius also a champ. It's only down 2%. I mean, still holding above 200. Pretty incredible. Intel was down 5. Intel is now down 3.93. As that is also slightly red. ServiceNow still up 4.7%. All right, SpaceX, let's talk about it. Ticker will be SPCX. IPO is June 12th. Company is focused on expanding retail coverage to international brokerages, not just US-based ones. They're looking to raise $80 billion at a $2 trillion valuation on Hyperliquid, which is a crypto it's a crypto platform / market maker / backend infrastructure to track the perpetual futures of a lot of these assets that aren't fully liquid yet. SpaceX is already trading at 1.8 trillion. Already trading at 1.8 trillion. So it seems very likely that SpaceX will IPO at 2 trillion. And I mean, who's buying SpaceX? Put it in the chat. Maybe you don't get the allocation from your brokerage, but when it actually opens up and everyone has the ability to buy, who's going to buy it? I will not. I'm not participating in this one. They're doing a stock split, so instead of it being $5.50 a share, it'll be like $120 a share. Because, 120 is a lot more compelling than 550 for a retail investor. So I think they're obviously trying to market it to retail. They're trying to get people to buy and hold. I don't think I could sleep well at night. I would want to own SpaceX one day, just not at these valuations. Same thing with Cerebras. And so I do think it'll be a relatively successful IPO, though. I think the IPO is going to be okay. I just wonder exactly, how aggressive the market is going to price it to be. Again, your space plays, the Rock Labs, the ASTSs, maybe they end up helping as well. SATs, etc. Yeah, Google has a 7%. That's the thing. I wonder what institutional investors are going to be dumping. Like Google owns 120 billion of it. I mean, if I'm Goog, do I want to really hold on for the ride I've been holding for 15 years, or do I want to take some freaking profits and invest in data centers? I don't know. We'll find out, but I feel like Google would be more prone to take some off the table. This is Nvidia's top 7 positions. This was disclosed in the 13F. Intel, CoreWeave, Synopsys, Coherent, Nokia, Nebius, and Gen B. Their top buys were Coherent, CoreWeave, and Gen B, which I don't even know what Gen B is. What is Gen B? Generate Biomedics, $2 billion market cap, up 23% this year. They maybe have a collaboration with Nvidia on AI training for drug discovery. Actually, I'm just hearing about this for the first time, but Gen B is one of the new buys that they have, and then you have your Coherence of the world and your CoreWeave. So Nvidia basically up 40 billion on all their buys, and the only thing they've sold so far is WeRide and what's the other one? Applied Digital over the past couple of weeks. SpaceX at 2 trillion feels preposterous. I can never buy SpaceX at that level. Rather buy the SpaceX proxies. Yeah, the 5-to-1 split is indeed happening. Wasn't SPCX something else? Was it SPCX? Yeah, I guess it was. But they ended up getting the ticker. ServiceNow still up 4%. I like it. I mean, I think it's going to go pretty viral as a ticker in general. It's just like, again, it's a hell of a valuation they're targeting, and how sustainable long-term is that going to become? Goldman Sachs, couple of things they had. Want to put some new tickers on people's radar. This is coming from Goldman Sachs in smaller plays. This is a report they put out this morning. Goldman Sachs analysis on AI infrastructure bottlenecks, shifting investor focus to picks and shovel plays in grid-connected power, advanced cooling, design engineering, and high-voltage components for hyperscalers. So as you can see, you have some more companies that are coming out, or more investment banks, and thinking of different tickers that are part of the broader ecosystem for data centers and electricity within data centers. You have IESC, POWL, MOD, STRL, Talked about that one a while ago. AGX, NVT, and a few more that are right there on the screen. The report had agentic AI energy surge and infrastructure obsolescence, critical physical bottlenecks, and value shift. While 90% of AI profit pools are currently captured by chips, memory, manufacturing, we believe the investment opportunity is shifting downstream. Future growth depends on picks and shovel companies providing solutions across data centers, power transmission, advanced cooling, grid-connected generation, and the skilled workers to resolve the physical constraints. So the picks and shovels argument, I think, is very legit, and it's not going anywhere. But it has also been a high beta picks and shovels play that obviously, has gone vertical. And a lot of these names, like Sterling Infrastructure, kind of went crazy, right? 165% year to date after one of their latest earnings where they disclosed new hyperscaler deals. So I think more of these smaller names are probably going to get out there, even some of these bigger names. But if they get some of these deals, Corning, Akamai, right? They announced recent deals with Meta, Nvidia, et cetera, Anthropic potentially. That's what's also getting the street a lot more excited. The other big piece of news we had last week, which now the media is starting to pick up a bit more aggressively on, is the Trump trades. So Trump did 3,700 trades while he was in office this year. And the Financial Times did a piece on just how that is the most amount of trading they've ever seen from a president in history. Trump, by the way, reposted the picture of him buying Intel on the low. And so you've got, a lot more people wondering, okay, what exactly is happening here in the context of all these trades? And, why is he trading this much? And obviously, I don't think Trump is literally himself trading, but the dude is buying and selling at a pretty incredible pace, or whoever's managing his estate. And, it's definitely leading people to be confused on how much influence or how much relevance Trump has in the context of corporate America. Now, for investors, I think it's bullish because, the president bought the dip. The funny thing is he sold the rip in February. If you actually go through the disclosures, he sold on February 10th and he bought around March 15th. So there were a lot of sales in that portfolio, but there were also a lot of buys, and the timing of it is just hilarious. Like right when the Iran stuff started to get more attention going into early February, March 4th is when it was actually announced he was selling, or whoever manages his stuff was selling. And then when it went down, he was buying. So it's pretty incredible, but this is just the economy we live in, right? This is, I think nothing is as, look, I don't love seeing this by a sitting president, but nothing is surprising to me after the meme coin. The meme coin to me was like, okay, we're living in a new regime if Trump is going to do something like that. And the meme coin's down 95%. It's almost like, everyone forgot about it. So if that's what's happening, then I think we're going to see more and more people get excited about this. This was a take from the Compound and Friends, a little bit more about kind of euphoria that I thought was also interesting in terms of what's happening with tech.
Microsoft, Oracle, and at the time, Cisco was doing $19 billion in revenue. Microsoft is 22. I think if you inflation adjust this, so Microsoft is doing 23. Inflation adjusted, that's 44 billion. Cisco is 19, $38 billion inflation adjusted. So Cisco is doing what OpenAI is doing. Like these were massive companies. It's just that a lot of the rest of the index was pure shit.
Well, that's the thing. We had forget about profit margins. We had pre-revenue companies. We had thousands of IPOs that we don't have right now.
John,
that's not what's happening.
John, give me 16.2. So I have
16.2.
Holy shit.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Are you sure you want to whip this out?
Charka did this for me. So this is NASDAQ 100 earnings growth. For 20 years, this thing has printed 14% annual earnings growth. So you had Mobison on your podcast. He always talks about baselines. I can't back this up. I'm just guessing. There's no way we've ever had a period like this with earnings growth this high for this long before. So in terms of baselines, the question is, could this continue? Could we see earnings? So yes, because the NASDAQ is up 20% per year or something over this period.
Which again, the earnings are contributing to, but my goodness, I think that is why you're having a little bit of a hiccup here. It's like, can that continue? And theoretically, yeah, it should. We're still at the pinnacle of AI. We barely even constructed a meaningful amount of data centers. Elon wants 100 terawatts per year of data centers, but it's also like, do we get that type of earnings growth priced in as easily as is happening right now?
Is AI, again, back to the baton handoff thing? Can AI keep this kind of earnings growth going?
Robotics could do it. You want another decade? You
it?
want another decade of 15% revenue growth? How about 10 million robots? How about 1 million humanoid robots and automating literally every inanimate object in the entire world? 'Cause
Plausible.
That's what's coming now.
Golden era of biotech.
Yeah,
That's
well,
it.
that could do it too. We live to 120. Yeah, that'll move the needle. So that's how you get 50. I think I was talking to my friends who are not professional investors, but I said maybe the worst thing you could do is have too much cash at too young of an age. Not that the market won't at some point have a horrific event where you wish you had more cash, but like that's going to get bought really fast all over again.
I agree with that on Josh. If we get some 10, 20, 30% decline, it will get bought. The earnings growth is too good, which is why we're probably not going to get that ugly of a decline, hopefully. But the question is the sustainability of going up every day, which is kind of what we've been experiencing. And if people really do get an opportunity to, once again, get some of these names at relatively better multiples.
Which part?
If we have like anything non-recession, any kind of market crash, right? That'll get bought up in 2 seconds. We'll get another V.
We had 2.
Yeah. We'll get another V. You know why? Because people see the degree of change happening and the speed and the acceleration of automation. And I think they realize they can't not own the chips, the robots, the AI. So I'm not saying like the market's not going to fall. It definitely will. I'm just not convinced we're going to have like a 2-year bear market with this much innovation happening.
So I remember back in March of this year. This was 2 months ago. Micron was at 470, had another earnings report that we all laughed at. The numbers were like, oh, wait, what? And then Micron swiftly went from 470 down to 310. In March, in like 10 sessions, it fell 30%. It went from 310 to 800.
Yeah.
In a month or two.
Right. If this cycle turns for whatever reason, it's gonna fast. John, give me chart 16 real quick. So
0.3.
This is the melt up. Matt did this for me. So the Nasdaq in the 90s, like the Nasdaq 100 over the past 10 years, it's kind of approaching that. But after the 90s, the Nasdaq fell 83%, and it took like 12 years to break even. That's the kind of thing we're not going to get again.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
There's no way you can. I don't think we can have that kind of fallout for that long.
Here's
again.
why.
I agree with that.
Chart 15.9. So in the dot-com bubble, 32% of the index constituents were trading between 60 and 100 times earnings. 34% of the index was trading over 100 times earnings, and 10% of it was unprofitable.
We don't have
Today, 60% of the index is trading between 20 and 40 times. Between 20 and 40, and 20 is trading between 40 and 60. We have 10% of the index that's trading at stupid levels. But we're just not valued the way that we were in the 1999. So yeah, the market can get cut in half. It always can. But is it going to fall 80%? That would be very hard to believe at this point.
Well, which I also agree with. I mean, again, at the end of the day, seeing it get cut in half is possible. Seeing it, which also would be really aggressive, but seeing it go down by 80%, which is what's his name, Burry, keeps screaming about. Will that end up happening? And right now, we don't know. Last few macro things I want to go over with, and then we'll be done for the day. So take a look at some of this stuff in the context of the midterm years. Every single midterm year since 1974, this is how the S&P 500 ended. It was ugly. So far, we're up 8% on the year. Again, every single midterm year since 1974 has been red. And this chart, I think, is also even more interesting. This is every single S&P 500 from May to October during the midterm years. The only one that was green was 1982. 2022 was down 19%. So once again, we are in uncharted territories in regards to the AI earnings growth being so monumental that it's denying the midterm slump, which we had for a couple of months. And earnings is the main story. Here's another stat that's kind of crazy. Every time a new Fed chair was selected, Bitcoin dropped 70%. Is this time different? Yellen dropped 70%. Powell, term 1, dropped 84%. Powell, term 2, dropped 81%. Are we going to see that with Kevin Warsh? Especially since Kevin Warsh is a fan of crypto, which that would be devastating if Bitcoin actually fell. Like really would be devastating because then, Bitcoin hasn't even participated in this bull market, but I wonder if it needs to go down that much again. Another stat, the last 3 times we had a 7-week win streak for the S&P 500 that was up more than 10%, saw stocks up more than 20% a year later each time. In fact, never lower a year later, looking at all 7 prior instances when you have a win streak. So we are currently on a win streak, 7 weeks, ending May 15th. We'll see this week. That was last week, right? We'll see this week if we can go for 8 weeks. Last time we had 8 weeks was 1998. The time before that was 9 weeks in December 2023. The average 7-week win streak is around 15%. 1 year later, the median, 52 weeks later, 1 year later, 15.9% you're up. So I just gave you a couple bearish stats about the midterm year and then Bitcoin. Here's a bullish stat, which is, look, we're having some pretty good streaks. And if that streak can continue, and it already hit the minimum threshold of 7 weeks to qualify for this stat to be historically accurate, a year from now, we should be up. Again, reminder that midterm years tend to see the largest intra-year corrections, but a year off the low, stocks have never been lower and up nearly 32%. So if we do get a pretty ugly midterm drawdown, which would kind of bleed into October, November, that would be a dip you have to buy if you think his history is correct and the year after on average would be up 30%. That's what we got today. That's what we got in terms of this macro. Now, by October, the 364-day cycle for Bitcoin also will be over, right? Which means Bitcoin should be up. The crypto winter theoretically should be over by the end of September. But you've got a lot of things converging. Service now still up 4%, and the midterm year still is the headwind. Bitcoin 76. Oh, wow. Bitcoin's actually going down further here. This is the lowest it's been all night. Very little bounce off 76.6 or 76.5. Now you're at 76.8. S&P lows of the night. There you go. 734. We did have a little bounce up and now we are right back down. Service now is the only one I'm seeing really getting some green. Even Adobe and Salesforce lost a little bit of their love. Microsoft's down, Snowflake's down, UNH down 6 because Berkshire sold as well. Would that mean hood to 30? Yeah. I mean, if Bitcoin goes down 70%, hood's getting wrecked. But then again, I think the NASDAQ's also getting wrecked if that happens to Bitcoin. Unless the semis trade just, keeps it holding up. 10-year just hit 4.63, the highest since February 2025. We are now 4 basis points above the high that prompted Trump's 90-day tariff pause in April 2025. The 10-year yield is up 70 basis points since the Iran war. Mortgage rates are now nearing 7%. It was funny because when my sister just bought her house last month, she had a chance to wait to close on her mortgage rate. I think she was getting 6.1. And, we ended up closing at 6.1, although, the realtor told us, hey, if you want to wait, like maybe it comes down a little bit. And we ended up saying, yes, I'm happy. We said, if we didn't, we would be paying 6.5, 6.7, 6.8%. Now that mortgage rates continue to get near 7, which is where we were going down from a couple months ago. And so, it affects the housing market again as well. The odds of a rate cut this year are over. The odds of a rate hike are now 50% by January of 2027, which would be, just unbelievable if that actually did end up happening going into January. 10-year right there, 4.627. Did you watch the fight? No, I heard about some fight over the weekend. Ronda Rousey. Yeah, I've heard of this chick. I've never really seen them fight. Ronda Rousey defeats Gina Carano by submission in 17 seconds. Oh, wow. I did not watch the fight. That was on Netflix? Yo, I went back home over the weekend. So I turned on Netflix because I have access to Netflix in my parents' house because they have control the account. And I watched 15 minutes of a 1990 movie that for some reason got me to click on it. Did anyone watch the fight? Has anyone seen this movie from 99? Go. I think I saw Katie Holmes in it, and that's why I clicked on it. And, Ronda Rousey ended up beating her opponent a lot quicker than the amount of time I spent watching this. But I got through a good 20 minutes of it. I thought it was interesting. Have people seen this thing? Yeah, for some reason I felt like watching. I got to see if Steve watched this, but I didn't end up finishing it. But it was on Netflix, and I was like, this is what Netflix is good for, finding those random movies from a while ago. Dougie and I watched the fight with the full poker table. Did people bet on this fight? Was it like 17 seconds is obviously kind of crazy. I imagine people thought Ronda was going to win, but yeah, 17 seconds is kind of wild. Intel right there, 104.13 as that's down Bitcoin 76,000 as well. How many stars would you rate Go? Well, I got a 7.2 out of 10 on IMDb, so that's why I even decided to watch it. I've seen this. It's better than High School Musical. Okay. I disagree with that, but I'll take your word for it for now. All right, so those are all the macro stats. I don't think there's anything else that's too crazy to go through. I mean, we talked about all the 13Fs. This 10-year keeps going up. We talked about a lot of macro stats. Again, Trump and Iran continuing to, I guess, escalate their words. So far, we haven't seen an escalation of military confrontation, but I imagine eventually we will if Trump continues to say Iran doesn't really get what's coming for them, essentially. Here's the other thing about what Trump's been saying. Like, you know, is he getting kind of dependent on his trigger finger? You know, he's laid off the button for a while, and he's given Iran a lot of time to try to capitulate. Is he getting to the point where he's just like, you know what, enough is enough? The markets are up a decent amount. I have the chance to do what I need to do, and I'm just going to go back to bombing them. Like, the blockade theoretically worked, not enough at getting them to the negotiating table, but enough to get them to, like, you know, realize they can't have full control over the Strait of Hormuz because we blocked the blocking. But I wonder if that's enough to get them to keep mowing. What's going on with Poet? Okay, so let me just real quick talk about Poet, since people are asking this as well. Then yes, we can end it with talking about the Drake album, if people cares. I did sit with it over the weekend. I do think it was a lot better than before. So yeah, this $50 million deal is nonsense. It's a conditional framework, zero upfront cash, just a promise to spend $50 million if the engineering samples actually work. Revenue is subject to qualifications, samples late 2026, production 2027, no real revenue for at least a year. And then Poet dropped a $400 million direct offering with warrants at 21. So even the institutional investors that bought it at 21, they didn't actually buy it. They bought warrants, which gives them more conditionality, because that part didn't make sense. I was like, why is an institutional investor buying this shit at $21? And they didn't actually buy it at $21, right? They have a warrant. So the actual share price is not that contingent on what it is at the moment. And then you have this firm, Night Market Research, go to Poet's headquarters in Toronto. We found abandoned rooms and none of the tenants on the same floor recognized Poet's, which was their headquarters in Canada. In fact, the reason Poet had a massive short report is because they had a PFIC issue, which, to not get too into the weeds of it, essentially it's, you can't have certain tax obligations if you're not in the United States, and Poet is in Canada. So to address the short report, they domiciled into the US, which I guess was enough to like calm down the shorts. And then they went up to 17, then they dumped back to 6, then they went up to 25. Now they're back at 13. They lost the Marvell deal because the CFO said something on a podcast. Like, again, there's some of these names going up that are just really weird, and, you know, they're catching a bid, but I think it's a little bit scarier than not to be excited about them. Bitcoin right there, 76.7 as well on the day. Amit, I bought Poet at 9. What should I do with it? Well, the question is, why'd you buy it? It's a simple question. Why'd you buy it? If you don't know why you bought it, then you have to ask yourself, why are you holding it? Now, if you bought it just for the hell of buying it, I mean, look, if I bought it at 9 and I can get out at 14, I'm taking my profit. But also, what if it goes to 30? You're going to feel upset that you sold it at 9, but you also don't know why you bought it at 9, right? So like these are the type of FOMO issues that I think some people are dealing with. But some of this stuff is obviously, like, if the semis rip again, Poet's probably going up. So it's one of those things to kind of broadly understand your conviction in the context of it. Same thing with ServiceNow, right? ServiceNow, for the people that bought it at 92 last week, you probably bought it thinking that this thing was undervalued. You're getting a little bit rewarded right here. But if the semis go back up and this comes back down, are you going to continue to think it's undervalued or think it's an opportunity cost? I feel like this year is a test for all retail investors on what is their conviction, what do they believe in, how much emotional resolve do they have to rotate or stay in certain names or not. And it's probably a good thing that it's not just all going up and up and up to the right like it has for the past couple of years, because, you need to be challenged. You need to kind of navigate your own emotions in the long term. I think it's going to make all of us better investors, but it's not the same type of bull market that it was over the past couple of weeks. Oil, are we at 108? Oil is indeed at 108. That's probably why the S&P just hit a new low, because oil continues to go up. DRAM still down as well. All right. Those are my thoughts about the market. Those are my thoughts on kind of what's going on with the market. I'll be back tomorrow when the market open. We'll see what else happens. But yeah, TLDR, Nvidia earnings this week will be super important. Okay, let's do a poll on this, and then we'll talk about the album. But I'm curious about that. Who thinks Nvidia is going to pop this week to the upside, and who thinks it's going to dump? Because I kind of feel, dude, like Nvidia's going to have a great earnings, but I kind of think it's going to dump. Like, I kind of think with bond yields the way they are and then oil up there, like Nvidia will demolish earnings, but I just wonder if the market really has the ability to give them. Nikkei continues to go down, by the way, 1.6%. The market has the ability to give them another couple trillion in market cap. Like, it's already at 5.5. Are we going to 6.2, 6.3? Like, I don't know, man. I think eventually. I don't know if it's this week. Now, granted, everyone, I think, is expecting it to dump because it's dumped every time on earnings, which means maybe it does the opposite. But if Nvidia goes up to 245, 250, Micron's got to go up back to 800. The Nasdaq's got to be well over 720. SanDisk probably hitting 1600. Like, all those names are going to follow it. I don't know if the market's ready to give all those names a little bit more love. But you got Nvidia 5 just when Google was trying to overtake it, Nvidia completely make the move up and kind of went away. It already popped unless they announced something crazy. Yeah, and I'm like, what could Nvidia announce that's really going to pop it up even further? Because we already know the numbers are going to be amazing. That is, in my opinion, priced in. Maybe a couple dollars higher is but every dollar is 25 billion in market cap. Buybacks we already know is there. They didn't sell any of their stocks. They're not going to have EPS go higher in terms of their 13F positions. They guided for 81%. They're probably going to grow 85 to 90%. It's like, okay, cool. do they reaccelerate the guide again to 110% or something for Q2? Like, I wonder how big do we have to see of a move here in terms of growth in order to keep this going up. Nvidia has to buy AMD for it to go up. Yeah, I don't know if Nvidia can take over AMD at this point. AMD 415 overnight as well. Yeah, the China deal didn't even go through. Dude, the China thing on the Friday, that was a real slap in the face. When I woke up and I saw the headline that said, Trump, we didn't talk about H200s with China, and I looked at Nvidia, I was like, oh my goodness. Like, that was the only freaking reason it was making a big move. The only reason. To like the 240s. And then Trump's like, yeah, that never even came up. It's like, then what the hell did you guys talk about? Like, why did Jensen even go there? Like honestly, why did Elon go there? Like, what actually happened? Did you guys just have some expensive duck and took some pictures? Like, what was the point of this whole trip? Because they didn't get any deal done with Nvidia or Tesla. So that was not the best for Nvidia. An expensive tea party, yeah. Elon was there for the selfies. By the way, Jensen has been seen as like a freaking rock star in China. Like, this man, he peeked out of his car and he just had this crowd all over him. Yeah, look at this. This is crazy. Absolute rock star in China. Just wild, the amount of people over him. Look at that. Jensen freaking Huang. So, I mean, I guess if you went to China to, take some photos and stuff, it's always good for more publicity, but still, it was, I don't know if we got any meaningful deals done. And then here's a picture of Jensen and Elon on Air Force One. I thought this picture is it's always so cool to see like the people we admire doing regular stuff. Now I know it's not regular to be on a private jet, but still, it's like, look at them. Diet Coke, got some Hershey Kisses. They're both on their iPhones. Elon's like, so you liking all that juicy revenue we're giving you from GPUs? Jensen's like, yeah, but you could give us some more. That's probably the conversation that they're having right now. It's pretty cool. Pretty freaking cool. Okay, anything else that was super important over the weekend? I don't think so. We talked about all the big hedge fund disclosures. I think that's pretty much it. Nvidia earnings Wednesday. It's going to be a big one. It's going to be a big one. Okay, Drake. All right, so this is the end of the market futures show. If you want to leave, you can leave now. I'll spend 5 minutes talking about Drake. I'm actually 5 minutes. We're not going to be here for another 20 minutes talking about Drake. It's ridiculous. I'm not a music reviewer. Although I have a lot of thoughts about this album, but that's not my thing. Look, I like it. I liked it. I think the album has multiple number one hits. I think it has multiple bangers. I think that the first listen of the Iceman wasn't the best. The fourth listen was incredible. I think that he's going to beat all the Billboard records. He has 13 number one hits. Michael Jackson also has 13 number one hits. Janice, STFU, amazing hook. Really growing on me. Shebang is amazing. Make them cry, make them remember, make them know. I love that kind of sequencing of the track list. I like the Future song a lot. I didn't like the beginning, then I really liked it. I think it was his best work since 2016. His best work since 2016. It was better than For All the Dogs. It was better than Certified Lover Boy. He had something to prove, right? The thing about artistry is like your earliest work is your best work because you have something to prove, especially in music, because you're like, this is who I am. Here's my story, and you have your greatest material. And then over time, it gets diluted because you either get too rich or too famous, or your creativity fades away because it's hard to be creative for that long. And I think that's what happened to Drake. I think over the past 10 years, the music has been good, but not at the level we expect. And it's been a lot of just random stuff he's throwing out there. This one, he had something to say. Too Hard for the Radio was great as well. I love that one. This one, he had something to say. And, obviously for those that don't know, he had a big beef with Kendrick Lamar, another rapper. I was educating Steve about this on the podcast because he had no idea about this. He lost the beef objectively. He lost pretty badly. And I think he felt very wronged by the industry that, in his opinion, conspired to basically make the diss song that Kendrick Lamar put up, Not Like Us, as like the anthem of 2024, when a Grammy, music video, Super Bowl, all this shit, and they were going against Drake. When in reality, I mean, they are, Kendrick Lamar and Dr. Dre, a lot of allegations of abusing their wives. And like, they're not holier than thou, I think was Drake's point. And I like the theme of the album where he was just like, you guys painted this narrative as if I'm some horrible predator, when in reality, you guys have a lot of baggage as well. And you made it seem like I'm the bad person with no proof, by the way, just allegations. And here's what I have to say. And I think, and they're under the same label, exactly. So, Universal Music Group definitively picked Kendrick Lamar over Drake, which is why he ended up suing Universal Music Group. And a lot of people said, you can't be suing a rapper. That's not how rap beefs happen. And his response is like, dude, I'm suing an industry. I'm suing a complex. I'm not suing an individual rapper. So I thought there was a lot of stuff he had to say, which I thought was really important. The other two albums I wasn't a fan of because it's not that I don't like R&B and stuff. I was just like, I don't like so much music at once. Like, I like something concise. And I've come to the opinion that Drake is an artist that has the ability to hit multiple audiences, right? He can sing, he can do R&B, he can do club records, and he can rap. I like the rapping stuff, and I love the singing and club record stuff as well. It's just, I don't like all of it stuck together in one album, which is why I think the previous two albums were just not cohesive, and it was just too much junk. I like the idea of he actually separated it. And he said, look, like, it was so funny. I was asking my sister today if she listened to it. And of course she listened to the non-rap album, the singing album. And she was like, yeah, I love this song. And I was like, of course you do. Like he made it for you. He made it for girls, right? He made it for women because that's the demographic that he was catering to. And I get why he separated the rap stuff where he had stuff to say and separated the singing stuff. And it was kind of a middle finger to all the rappers in his industry because he's just like, you guys can't do what I do. You guys can't do the type of diversity of genres that I can do when it comes to actually putting out content and getting that many people to actually listen and care. Burning Bridges, big shot at ASAP Rocky. You guys are music heads, bro. You guys are music heads here. So I loved it. I thought the album was great. It's going to be in my rotation for a long time. 1 a.m. in Albany, which I think was called Make Them Remember on the album. He was just going crazy on that. The bars, by the way, were ridiculous. Like some of these bars, like talking about rapping. You're talking about quadruple entendres. Like some good shit in some good bars in this music. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed listening to the album. It also sent me down a rabbit hole around Michael Jackson. So like a lot of you guys know, Michael Jackson has been a very big influence in my life. And when he died in 2009, it completely changed the trajectory of how I, quite frankly, thought about life and what I wanted to do and all this stuff. And I haven't seen the new movie yet, but I've been going down a rabbit hole of listening to all these different videos about Michael Jackson's life and so many things I'm relearning because it's been a while since I've like gone down my Michael Jackson rabbit hole. I didn't know that in 1985, Michael Jackson spent $47.5 million and bought ATV Publishing, which at the time was the biggest record label out there. They owned the Beatles, Mariah Carey, Babyface, all that stuff. Michael in 1985 was like a ruthless businessman. He was not just a performer. He was not just an artist. And so the cover of Iceman is obviously an homage to Michael Jackson because you've got the iconic white glove. And I think what Drake is saying right here is that, you know, the industry screwed over Michael, which they did because now it was kind of Michael's fault as well. This was the cover. Michael ended up Michael gave up 50% of the ownership in 1997 to Sony, and it became Sony ATV Publishing. So for the first time in like 10 years, he gave up full ownership. And when he got full ownership, you know, the music industry was really upset because they were like, oh my goodness, this guy, and 47 million back then was like a lot of money, right? So it sounds like nothing right now, but for the rights to all that catalog, he ended up financing it with a bunch of banks and he went into a lot of debt, levered up, basically went on a lot of margin to be able to afford that. But he was able to do it. And then I think Michael made a mistake in the late 90s by then allowing Sony to buy 50% of it, probably because he wanted to reduce his debt. They gave him $95 million in cash. But as soon as he did that, Sony stabbed him in the back and basically sabotaged everything he did after that to try to get him to give up the other 50% because they didn't want someone like him, a performer, to be as powerful. I think Drake is making the argument that he is so powerful now that the industry hates him. And, you know, there's a world in which he flips the industry on its head, like Michael Jackson did, by potentially going for a bigger business player, which would be pretty incredible. Look at Micron about to flip green. Is ServiceNow down? ServiceNow still up. Okay, ServiceNow somehow holding up. Micron, I guess your dip was 705, 722 right here on Micron. Kospi just went green. Yep. Nvidia still pretty red compared to Micron. I guess it wasn't down as much as Micron. Micron, there you go, flipping green. If ServiceNow goes red, it would once again be similar to the characteristics we've seen for a while. Rocket Lab's still down. UNH is still down. Uber's still down. I mean, everything else is still pretty red, but Micron in particular, maybe there's some Samsung updates. That's why the memory names are flipping. And that's why those might be green. Did Drake release his 13F? That's the real question. That's a good point. I don't think we have Drake's 13F yet. But look, he's going to get a Billboard #1 hit. He had the #1 streaming debut on Spotify when the album came out, 140 million streams. He's going to have 14 Billboard #1 hits. Michael Jackson had 13, so he's going to hit a lot of new records. And here's the thing. I think the reason he did 3 albums, as the tenure continues to spike up, is because he had 3 albums left on his $400 million deal. Now, you've got rumors that Drake's going to private equity firms and he's going to sign a $1 billion contract with a PE fund. And he's just going to have full ownership of his music without having to go through Universal, which is obviously the most important music industry on the planet. Samsung wins partial court approval to restrict a planned strike by its union. Okay, that's why Micron's going green. Because Samsung basically won approval to stop a strike. How do they stop the strike, though? Even if the court approves that you can stop a strike, if the union keeps striking, that's kind of confusing. I don't get how they can stop it, even if they have a court approval to stop it. But that obviously is helping the memory names right there. Micron right there up 0.5%, and then SanDisk also a little green. EWI trying to flip green as well. The thing about the Samsung story is that if they end up losing supply because of the whole strike with the workers, it's kind of bullish for Micron because less supply, right? So more pricing power. Now, it's not good in general for the memory trade, but like theoretically, if Micron doesn't have their workers on strike, so if Samsung can't produce the product, you know, I know they're technically different, but like Micron can potentially get some of those purchase orders, and I don't know, maybe that is one of those narratives. But obviously, I think the algorithms would rather like the memory trade to be intact, and that's why it's good that Samsung might end up with a deal. But yeah, I think the Drake album was amazing. I thought it was good stuff. I think he had some real stuff to say. Sometimes you got to sit with an album for a little bit, and yeah, I think he's going down the Michael Jackson route to an extent, and I guess we're going to find out how his career ends up playing out. He did mention Bitcoin. He mentioned Sam Bankman-Fried. He mentioned Polymarket. I wonder if Polymarket paid him like $10 million to just say the word Polymarket. I feel like there's definitely something that could have happened like that, but he had a bunch of crypto bars that were in there as well. Okay, I think that's pretty. Did other people enjoy the album? Did people like it? If you listen to it, because I did. Drake getting compared to Michael Jackson, saying, trust me, I think Michael Jackson is the biggest artist ever in human history. I think he always will be. But the closest thing we've had to Michael Jackson since Michael Jackson is Drake. I mean, there's just no other artist, in my opinion, that has ever even come close to Michael. Now, I don't think Drake is Michael Jackson level. But when it comes to global appeal, numbers, raw stats, money, it's Mike. Well, okay. People will say Taylor Swift. I guess I can't really argue that. I guess we'll put them both up there, Taylor Swift and MJ. It's not Kanye, dude. It's not. You have to have the type of appeal that is global and that gives you the Billboard records, the stats. Like very few artists can get that, especially rappers, because rappers, you know, a lot of people don't listen to rap. You got to but Drake sings, right? It's not just rap. So BTS is not global, dude. Or BTS is global, but like, you know, I don't think they're at the level where everyone in the world listens to BTS. Whereas, you know, it's still K-pop at the end. I think everyone in the world listens to Drake and Taylor Swift. Also, for those saying Kanye, have you seen his last 3 albums? You talk about dumpster fire. You talk about garbage. Like, no. Don't even. Yeah. What is BTS? Exactly. Like, I love Kanye, but I mean, the music has not kept up. It's just not kept up. Yeah, I guess I would say Taylor Swift. Yeah, Kanye came out with an album this year. It was barely talked about. Even J. Cole's album, dude. I love J. Cole. I really do. But that album came and went. And I don't think he really said anything that interesting on it. And I think it was way too many songs and not enough cohesiveness. And it wasn't diversified. Like, I think Drake obviously had the best music so far this year. Wow, Micron goes red again. All right, so this thing's just going back and forth as it tries to figure out where to stay. ServiceNow still up 4%. Is that still green? I wanted to do like a streaming listening party to the album. I feel like that would be fun one day, but I also I don't know how the copyright is with YouTube, and you know, so many people got taken down, and I don't know. I kind of wanted to enjoy the album by myself, and I spent a good amount of time this weekend with it, and I was like, I like it. I like it. Eminem is up there. Eminem is amazing, but I don't know if he's the type of global appeal that Drake. I also think Eminem at his peak is nowhere near Drake at his peak. Remember, Drake at his peak, Hotline Bling, One Dance, God's Plan, Nice for What? Like, you're talking about hit after hit after hit after hit. Like, Eminem's amazing, but I think Drake's still up there. He had a good 2-album stretch, maybe 3-album stretch. But Eminem was not the type of international pop star that Drake was. That's my point. Like, got to separate rapping from pop music and then see which ones. I mean, even Justin Bieber, bro. Justin Bieber's huge, but I still think Drake, in terms of pure influence and quality of music and business dealings. Look at Bitcoin getting back above 77. Nice little V right there. Is still bigger. What about Diljit? Okay, so Diljit's huge, Diljit, but he's Indian and he raps and sings in Indian. So, like, a lot of people can't listen to it, right? Because it's hard to comprehend when you don't know what the guy's saying. So, now maybe Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny is just so big. I guess I'm forgetting about him. But if I had to put it up there, I'd say Bad Bunny, Taylor Swift, and Drake. Diljit is still huge, though. He's definitely huge. Okay, is that it? Are we done? Are we done for the day? What about Matt Money? You guys know it's Matt's birthday today? I wish he was in the stream. Is he back? I don't know if he's back home or if he's in the UK. Do we want to give him a call and wish him a happy birthday? Let's see if he picks up. I already texted him, but let's see if he picks up. Let's see. It is Mr. Matt Money's birthday today. Let's see. He might be asleep. He is abroad. I think he went there for work, but I also think he went there for a little bit of... Matt!
What's going on?
You're live on the Future Show.
Oh, Lord.
We all wanted to wish you a happy birthday, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Much appreciated. All the love from everyone.
You're still abroad, right? You're not back home?
Yeah, it's 3 a.m. in London.
Did I wake you up or were you up?
I'm light sleeping because I have to be at the airport in 3 hours. So
Okay, that's fair.
yeah.
So, how does it feel to basically change a lot of people's lives with one pick? That, you haven't been on the show in a couple weeks, and really you haven't been on the show since, the name. I don't need to name the name. The name that we all know that you've got us all into has gone to the literal moon. It's taken off on a rocket ship, one would say. How does it feel as you get older to know that you've legitimately made an impact in so many lives, including mine, with a lot of your analysis, but also with this one pick? How do you feel about that?
Oh, I appreciate the kind words, but at the same time, I'm just a guy who is enthusiastic about stocks, and I view myself more as a shepherd to allow the executives that put in all the hard work and the teams that put in the hard work, like the employees, to just get more recognition. Sir Peter Beck and the team at Rocket Lab and Adam Spice, the CFO, deserve all the credit. I mean, I deserve zero credit other than, just putting up a couple YouTube videos. These guys are literally putting rockets into space. Like, I can't be the one that's just like, oh, I'm changing lives. I'm just a dude that likes stocks. These guys are actually the ones that are changing lives. So if any thanks are due, I appreciate people trying to be like, oh, Matt, thank you. I'm not the guy. You need to be thanking the team at Rocket Lab for sure.
Well, humility is one of the best virtues. And so we appreciate you regardless, Matt. I'm going to let you get back to sleep because I know you got a long flight. But thank you, man. Happy birthday. The whole chat right now spamming happy birthday, and we deeply appreciate you.
Much appreciated. I hope to step up contributions to AK Media here soon enough.
All right. We love it. And I know if you're looking for a new role as a media contributor, there's always open spots. So I'd love to have you.
I know. I need to stop slacking is what I'm hearing.
I love it. Thank you, Matt. Happy birthday, brother.
Thanks for the call. Much appreciated.
Yeah. Later. Good night.
Later, brother.
That's a good guy. Matt is a good guy. Micron right there goes red again, down 0.5%. As that one is down in the futures. S&P 500 still pretty much at the lows of the day, 734. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Does anyone else have a birthday in May? We got some May birthdays. What is a birthday in May? What's the Scorpios, or not the Scorpio? What's the zodiac sign? It's Taurus or Gemini. So April 20th to May 20th is a Taurus. May 21st to June 20th is a Gemini. Ethan, since today is my birthday, happy birthday to you as well, Ethan. You and Matt sharing your birthday. Jake, your birthday was May 1st. Happy birthday to you. Happy belated. My son's birthday is in 10 days. It'll be 24. Finn's birthday was May 5th. Happy belated to you, Finn. May is when, May, June, July, you start to see the birthdays ramp up. And then I think in October, it just goes crazy. Dude, it's going to be in 13 days or 14 days. We're going to be in June, which is a little crazy to me. Like, is that not crazy to other people? Like, in 2 weeks, we will be in June of 2026. It's going to be wild. J-Dog says it's your 50th. Happy 50th to you, sir. J-Dog. That's incredible. Happy birthday to you. Happy 50th. I will be 29 October 27th. Dirty 30 creeping up on me. I'm actually, it's going to be quite surprising or important to see where the market is by October. Like, what volatility can we stand? Do we have to have a drawdown going into that October time? And will the earnings growth expectations just keep going up and up? I think it's going to be like the big question going into October. Kospi in South Korea now flipping green. So that's, again, getting help from Samsung. There he is. He's in the chat. Back to sleep. Thank you, Matt Money. We appreciate you, man. Very, very happy birthday to you, sir. All right. I think I should go to sleep as well. We'll be back for the market open tomorrow. This week we got Nvidia. Tomorrow we have Baidu in the morning. Not that. I mean, it's important, but not that important. We have Home Depot on Tuesday with Kava and Toll Brothers. Oh, I'm interviewing a guy on Thursday. Do you guys know Bubble Boy? So this is a account on X that called Intel at like 20 and like really, he's anonymous. The dog is the profile picture that you're going to see, but he's been analyzing the semi trade for a while. Intel was his biggest bet. I also think he nailed the bottom of SanDisk. So I'll be interviewing him on Thursday after the close. And I'm really curious to get his thoughts on where he sees Intel going, this whole Taiwan situation, the catalyst for the global foundries business of Intel. If SanDisk can keep moving, I think he's basically said the next Intel is SanDisk, which is kind of crazy given SanDisk has made such a crazy move. And then what are his thoughts on photonics? Because I think he's a little bit more bearish on that than not. So it should be a good one on Thursday. And so we'll talk to him there. And then Nvidia, that's the big one. What did you guys say on the poll? What did you guys say on the poll? Did you guys say it'll dump? Nvidia, you guys are saying pump 54. Right. 54%. Everyone says pump. Wednesday, we will be live to cover Nvidia earnings. All right, that's it for me. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. I'll see you guys tomorrow on the market open. Hopefully everyone had a good weekend. Again, we do have oil up. We have futures down. We'll see if that changes over the coming days. But I think we're back to the Iran headlines. And, I think at this point, we just want to sustain the gains, even if we don't keep going up. And if we go down, hopefully it's consolidation going down, not like just waterfall going down. And over this week, we'll see what ends up happening. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a great night. I will see you guys tomorrow for the market open. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.